themselves that behave differently around them. I wish you a very happy They are places where familiar rules begin to bend. Now, my friends, let's give ourselves a moment to questions in science and are still waiting for answers. Begin by closing your eyes. If this content interests you, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel and bring your attention your support. Settle yourself to continue with a couple of deep, relaxing breaths. Black holes sit at the crossroads of gravity, motion, and then gently releasing the air back out. They shape galaxies. Now see if you can start to imagine a point of light and leave your very fingerprints that travel across the universe. And soothing. They challenge warming your body from within, follow precise and expelling any negative or unwanted energies your body may be holding. Their influence reaches across. Picture that light expanding outwards, filling your chest, they may appear remote and abstract, arms, neck, they play a vital role in the unfolding story. Watch as the expanding light from the sweeping arms of galaxies to the faint echoes of every single person on Earth has a black holes connect the immense just like this with the microscopic. Watch as every person's light expands out to the destiny of matter. The world is a vibrant and they offer rare windows into conditions that cannot be recreated anywhere else. And now, follow my voice. If you enjoy these gentle explorations at nighttime, I invite you to like, subscribe, overhead, or share a thought below. It helps others discover this space as well. You are standing beneath the dark night sky, lit by the glow of a full silver moon. Simply relax. It is a calm, beautiful Let your body grow soft, so dark and you're breathing that the buildings, alleyways, and allow your mind to settle as we journey through this remarkable corner of reality. Homes and shops throughout the area have switched off their electric lights at sundown. A black hole forms when a massive star collapses beneath its own gravity. Your eyes are drawn to the Not every large star becomes between streets, and that is part of the story. When an extremely massive star exhausts marking the flows of the lunar there is no longer enough outward pressure to support its core. Gravity takes control, objects and the collapse speeds up. For a fraction of a second, tradition, matter is squeezed to densities that defy ordinary experience. But the lanterns used during the outer layers may explode outward as a supernova. They are often larger, more elaborate, and themed around the zodiac animal. If the remaining core is heavy enough, even the strongest known forces signals the end of winter and the arrival of spring. What is left to the traditional Chinese is not a hollow void. Unlike the Gregorian calendar, it is a compact which divides the year into 12 months. Much mass. The traditional Chinese calendar follows 24 lunar terms inward around it. The first term begins with the new moon appearing between the 21st of January and the 20th of February. Do not pull harder than stars. The dates of the festival differ from year to year, depending on that year's lunar calendar. Because the name celebrations may last like 15 days in total, though often only the first 7 days are a public holiday. Gravity depends mainly on mass and distance. There's a great deal of preparation that takes place before the festival officially begins. The same mass, prior to the holiday itself, it's common in southern China to eat a New Year cake, also known as rice cake. A normal star This is a combination of glutinous rice flour cannot get arbitrarily close to its and spices. With a black hole, often steamed rather than baked, packed into a much smaller region. It was provided as an offering to the kitchen god for gravity to change rapidly of all domestic deities. Short distances. One of the kitchen god's duties, according to Taoist folk is what makes the environment is to report to the Jade Emperor in other words, the new year begins. The real threat detailing the deeds of the family during the past year. It is how to see if they would have good fortune as you near it. It was believed that after eating no sticky cake around a black hole, the kitchen god's mouth would be so stuck horizon that he wouldn't be able to tell of any transgressions, and it is not a glowing boundaries. Families might also pour wine over the portrait where the rules of the kitchen god change so that he will be happy and report only nice things. You can still aim a rocket outward. The eating of this cake is thought to bring about much good luck. Inside it, and leftover pieces are often sent out as gifts to friends and family. Even if you fire engines actually a homonym, the size of this boundary year depends on the black hole's mass. Good year ahead. For a black hole in the week prior to New Year, the event are kept very busy with housework kilometers across. Homes are cleaned until they're full. It can be larger than the orbit of a planet. An act which is as symbolic as it is that you could drift across without feeling a sudden jolt. And tidying away is not in your body that has passed. The change is in what the universe will allow next. Once something crosses the event horizon, to ensure that the home is a welcoming environment. This is not a matter of strength or stubbornness of the year ahead. It is a matter of direction. Once the house is near the horizon, its spacetime is curved so sharply of red and outward stops being a usable future to symbolize the coming springtime. Light beams aimed outward still lanterns are hung from ceilings, and which means paper cuttings, no message, picture, no signal, are stuck to walls, and no last-minute rescue can reach the outside world, bearing poetic messages of hope. Yet the experience depends on where you are watching calligraphy. Are hung to a distant observer, above the main falling object can appear to slow and fade. Colorful as its light becomes red out into view, and weaker as our vases filled with to the falling object. Peach blossoms. The crossing happens in a finite time, in a celebration with no flashing sign that announces it. Some families go a step further, painting their doors and window frames so haunting, vibrant red. They can hide a perfectly ordinary moment that receives a makeover inside a boundary that seals off the rest of the universe. Black holes are invisible, are booked in, because light and new clothing is purchased, so that one might fully embrace that feeling of a fresh start from head to toes. A black hole can reveal outstanding debts are paid off. To its thank you gifts sent out. Gas loose ends tied up wherever possible. Heat up until it shines fiercely. The celebrations begin on Chinese because gravity converts motion with a feast known as the reunion dinner. Background this is perhaps the most special meal in a family's year when it passes near. A time when families come together, even those living far away, traveling when a black hole to partake in the celebration of a distant source. Everything briefly is a shared experience, like a natural from preparing the food and setting the table, the darkness, to eating the food itself, as the new year is welcomed trapped into tight paths. The actual meal differs from region to region. Though in general, black hole it served is a banquet of meats, fish, vegetables nearby and dumplings can become bright. In some regions, goldened out in radiation to have the appearance of edible treasure, the same like the gold ingots formerly used in imperial China. Scientists detect black holes often served watching in the hopes that those eating will have long and heavy signature that is hard to fake. If you see a star which is a homonym unseen plenty at tremendous speed, often served as well. You can work backward and calculate how much mass must be hidden there. Seeds as a symbolic famous example is near the center of our own galaxy. Oranges, astronomers tangerines, individual stars are a symbol of family togetherness. One star in particular candy follows may be eaten with elongated orbit that brings it startlingly close to an invisible central object, symbolic as it back out delicious. By measuring that orbit carefully, scientists families generally stay home and playing mahjong of what the star is circling. Other games until midnight. If the hidden mass was spread out, the orbit would look different. Have parties. The motion instead points to something extremely massive, packed into a very small children who stay up late. It is a detective story written in starlight the lifespan of their parents. The center of the Milky Way contains a supermassive black hole. Earlier, won't be close in everyday terms, nearly midnight. Yet it is close enough that we can study it in detail compared with many other galaxies. The skies are lit with stunning fireworks called every galactic center, shape, and color. Where gas clouds, dust, and Chinese New Year's Day through a complicated gravitational time with family and loved ones. Most of the time, people will spend the day with their extended families, which is particularly more elderly relatives like grandparents. A supermassive black Mandarin oranges are exchanged to be symbols of good fortune to dominate family togetherness. While married family members are known to give out red envelopes containing cash, and it anchors the motion of these beautiful envelopes are decorated with auspicious messages written in gold lettering, bestowing yet more happy wishes upon their lucky recipients. A star. Generally, these envelopes are gifted from the older members of the family to the younger, alongside the hope that it will lessen any obstacles that potentially lie ahead. Businesses, too, will distribute red envelopes amongst their employees, the architecture, all in the hopes of a smooth year ahead. Money is generally given as multiples of 8, millions of numbers larger than the sun. Being that 8 is considered as the luckiest of numbers from theory, Money is always given
from
in
watching
even numbers
those rapid
because
stellar
odd
orbits
numbers are thought
and
to
measuring
be
how
unlucky.
fast
However,
the stars move.
the number 4 is
Especially
always
near
avoided
their closest approach.
because the word
With that
for
information,
four is similar to the
scientists
word
can
for
estimate
death
the mass
in many
required
Chinese
to keep
dialects.
the stars bound in such
For this
tight
reason,
tracks.
hotels and businesses
The
will
result
also often
is
omit the
astonishing.
4th floor.
And
Millions
restaurant
of suns
tables
worth
will
of
jump
mass
from
is
3
packed into
to
a
5.
region small enough to fit well
Beliefs
inside
around
our
luck
solar system. Are a central part of Chinese culture.
This is one of the clearest
Particularly
examples
during
of how
the
a
New
black
Year
hole
period.
can be both enormous in mass
Indeed, similarly
and
to how
compact
much is
in
done
size.
to usher in good fortune,
It also reshapes
many
how
activities
you
are
picture
also
density,
avoided because they're
You
thought
can have a
to be
mass that
unlucky.
belongs to a star cluster.
On Chinese New
and
Year's
yet it
Day,
behaves
washing
as if it
one's
is
hair or
concentrated
clothing
into a
is thought
single
to wash
dark
away good
point.
luck, while
That
sweeping or
concentration
needlework
is why the
are thought to
environment
deplete
near
a
the
person's
galactic
wealth.
center is so extreme.
Certain words are taboo.
Some black
like
holes
the number
are
4
only a few times
and
heavier than the
porridge
sun.
should not be eaten.
These are often
as it's
called
said to bring
stellar
about
mass
poverty.
black holes.
There are other
And they are born
superstitions
from
that
individual
last throughout
stars
the
rather than
15-day
from
period.
entire galaxies,
like
not using
Their
scissors
size
or
can be
knives
surprisingly small
because they cut
compared
away
with their
wealth,
mass,
which makes
or
their
wearing
immediate
black
surroundings
or white,
intensely
which are
violent
associated
when they
with
feed.
sadness and poverty.
In many
and
cases,
funerals,
the founding
respectively.
binary systems paired with a normal star. Over
Even the
time,
fireworks that
gravity
paint the
can
sky
pull
night
gas
after
from the
night
companion
are thought to
star,
scare away
forming
evil
a
spirits,
swirling stream that
as are the
spirals
firecrackers
inward.
and bamboo lit
As
below,
that gas
and the
speeds up,
spectacular
it
parades
heats
of lion
until it
troops
shines
that fill
strongly.
the streets, and it can flicker as the flow
Out of
changes.
all that happens throughout the New
That
Year
flicker
period,
becomes
these
a clue.
parades are amongst the most unique.
By studying
and how the
fabulous.
companion star moves and how the
Watching
radiation
the
behaves,
lie-like movements of these
astronomers
magical
can infer
creatures
an
is
invisible
like watching a
partner with
festive
too
work
much
of
mass
art.
to be a neutron star.
Indeed, the Chinese lion
These
costumes
black holes
showcase
feel
every
almost
shade of
personal,
red compared
gold,
with
and
supermassive
green.
ones, all upon
They
the
live in
richest
star
and
systems.
most sumptuous
They interact
silks and furs,
and they change their neighborhood.
Their massive
dramatically.
heads are particularly impressive.
Others are billions of times
Fabian
heavier than the
constructed
sun.
over a bamboo frame.
These are the
meticulously
giants
painted
of the black hole
and
family.
decorated.
They
are as
usually live in the
strange and
centers of
magical
large
as one could
galaxies.
ever imagine.
Their mass is
Concealing
so
the
huge
expert
that their event
performers
horizons
inside
can
to
span
the point where
distances
one might
comparable
easily
to the
forget
scale of
that they
planetary
aren't somehow
orbits.
magical creatures brought
That
to life.
scale changes the feel
They
of
even
the gravity
move like
nearby,
lions,
leaping
instead of
about
tearing
in such an
things apart
acrobatic manner,
immediately.
dancing to
A
the beat
very
of drums,
massive black
gongs,
hole
and
can allow
cymbals.
matter to orbit in
Occasionally,
large,
they pause to
stable
munch
paths
upon the fresh
far
greens
from the horizon.
from various doorways en route.
Yet, when these
Their
giants
mouths
feed,
chomp at the vegetables,
it can become the
leaving a
engines
trail of
behind
leaves on the
active
ground,
galaxies,
meant to symbolize the
lighting
spreading
up their
of good luck
cores
and
with
fortune
enormous
around the
power.
town. They
As
also
before,
influence
there
their
are differences
surroundings
in
over
costume
long
and
time
practice
scales from region to region. The growth of a central black
But generally,
hole
these
appears
dances will
linked
take
to the
place
growth
over
of the
the first
galaxy
few
around
days
of the new year. Like many of the other practices
As
at
if the
this
galaxy
time,
and
there
its
are
hidden
numerous
core
myths
are in a
associated
long
with the use of
gravitational
lions.
conversation.
One particularly
Even when
charming
they are
story
quiet,
tells of the
their
evil
mass
beast
shapes
Neo,
the motion of
who
stars
threatened
across
the
the
safety of a
galactic
village
bulge
until the people enlisted
stellar
lions
black
to
holes
scare him
form
away
from the depths
of
following
large
year,
stars.
without any real
In
lines
the final
to help
stages
them.
of a massive star's
The
life,
villagers dressed
the
up
core becomes a
and
kind of
pretended
cosmic
to be
balancing
lions,
act.
successfully
Nuclear
scaring
burning
away the
once
beast,
provided pressure
and doing
pushed
so
outward.
every year.
But as fuel
after.
runs low, that support weakens.
These dances are
The
a
core
modern
contracts,
reenactment of
heats,
this
and
tale,
races through
and
its
the
last
victory
burning
of
phases
good
until it can
over
no longer
evil.
produce enough pressure to resist
The day
gravity.
after
What
New
happens
Year's Day
next
is often
depends on
referred
the
to
mass
as the
that
year's
remains in the
beginning,
core.
and
After
marks
the
the
star
start
sheds
of a new
material
cycle
and explodes.
with its own associated
If the
zodiac
core is
animal.
light enough, it can settle
These
as a
are
neutron
the 12
star.
animals of the Chinese zodiac.
If it is heavier,
and they repeat
collapse continues
in 12
past every known
cycles.
barrier.
The
That
order
is the
of these
moment
animals,
a stellar
once again,
black hole
is rooted
is born.
in myth, and the story
It can
of the
begin
great
as something
race.
only a few times the
As
sun's
the tale
mass.
goes, the
Yet
Jade
it carries
Emperor,
the aftermath
ruler
of a
of the
star's
heavens,
entire history
wanted to
in
devise
its
a
gravity,
way to measure
its
time.
spin, and its
To do
place
so,
in the galaxy.
He held a race amongst all animals
Supermassive
on
black
Earth,
holes, likely
declaring
grew
that
by
the
merging
first
and
12
feeding
across
over
the finish
time.
line would earn a spot
These
in
objects
the
are so
Chinese
huge
zodiac.
that it is hard to imagine
The
them
rat
forming in a
was the
single
first
step.
to cross,
A
followed
leading
by the
picture
ox,
is that they began as
tiger,
smaller seed
rabbit,
black holes in
dragon,
the early universe,
and snake.
then gained mass
Then
through a
came
long
the
series
horse,
of meals and
goat,
collisions.
monkey,
gas drifting
rooster,
toward the center of a
and
young
dog.
galaxy can settle
And
into a
finally,
dense, rotating
the
flow.
pig. It is a
that
charming
steadily feeds
tale
the central
that
black
reflects
hole.
the
At
character
the same
of
time,
each animal.
galaxies collide and
The rat,
merge,
for instance,
and their central
is carried
black
across
holes
the river
can end
by
up
the
bound
kind
together
ox,
in a slow,
only
only to
spiraling
cleverly
dance.
leap over the creature's head at
Over
the finish
millions
line
of years,
to claim
they
first
lose
place.
energy and finally
The
combine
dog,
into
on the
one
other hand,
larger object.
finishes in 11th place.
Each merger
because he
adds
spends
mass
so long
and can
playfully
change the final
splashing in
spin.
the water.
Each
Children
feeding episode
born in the year
can
of
light up a
particular
galaxy's
animal
core
are
as a
believed
quasar.
to share its traits.
What we
A
see
child
today
born in
may
the
be
year
the
of the
end
rat,
result of
for example,
countless chapters
may
of
be
growth
clever and
that
resourceful,
played out over
while one
cosmic
born
time.
in the year of the dog is thought
Black
to be
holes
cheerful
can grow
and
by pulling in
easygoing.
gas, dust,
Children
and even
born in
stars.
2026, the
Growth
year of the
is not
horse,
usually a
are
single
believed to
dramatic
be energetic and independent.
It is often a steady
though
process,
sometimes a little
like a
impatient.
gravitational tide drawing
In
material
addition,
inward.
each zodiac
bit by
animal
bit.
is influenced by the 5 elements.
Gas clouds can drift
metal,
too close
wood,
and
earth,
begin to spiral
fire,
toward the
and
center,
water.
heating as they
These
fall,
elements further
and
shape the
radiating
strength
energy
and weaknesses
away.
associated with people born
Dust
in a
rides
given
along
year.
with that
A
gas,
water tiger,
and it can
for
hide the
instance,
action from
is
ordinary
thought to be
telescopes,
a little
while the
wiser
region
than a fire
blazes in
tiger,
other wavelengths.
who is more likely to be powerful
Sometimes
and
the meal is
influential.
far more dramatic.
At Chinese
a
New
star
Year,
can
it's common
wander
to see
into a
images
region
of the appropriate
where gravity
animal
changes
amongst
sharply
posters
over
and
short
decorations.
distances.
After all,
And the star is
the festival
stretched
is a
and
celebration
torn
of
apart.
that animal, as well as
Part
the
of
coming
that
year
shredded
itself.
material escapes,
Some animals,
but part
such as
can
the
settle
dragon,
into a hot,
are thought of as
swirling
particularly
flow
lucky,
that feeds the
and
black
there's
hole
often
for
an
months
increase in birth
or
rates
years.
during these years. As
Over
people
long
hope to add a
timescales,
lucky dragon baby
this
to the
steady
household.
diet can turn a modest black hole
Just as
into a
believers
much
of Western
larger one.
astrology might look towards their
Matter
horoscopes,
falling toward a black
some
hole
will study the
heats up
zodiac
and
or
glows
visit fortune
brightly.
tellers, hoping to grasp
Gravity
a sense
does not
of
just
what the
pull
future year
material
holds.
inward. It also
Each year is
converts
thought to
motion
carry the
into
particular
heat
energy
as
of its
gas
assigned
collides,
animal, something that
compresses,
influences
and
events
churns
across
on
the
the way
globe.
down.
The
The
year of the
closer
rat,
the gas
who took
gets,
first
the
place in the
faster
Great
it
Race,
moves,
is
and the
linked
more
to the theme
violently
of
it
new
rubs
beginnings.
against itself.
As such, few are
That
surprised
friction
when
and
big
global
compression
changes
can raise
coincide
temperatures
with the year
high
of
enough
the
to
rat.
produce intense radiation.
On an individual
Often
level,
in
many
ultraviolet
people will look
and
to
X-rays
astrology to learn how their
In
own
some
zodiac
systems,
animal
this
might
light
fare in
flickers
the coming
and flares
year.
as the flow becomes
This is
unstable,
taken into account when
like
making
weather
important
in the stormy
life
atmosphere.
decisions, from moving home
In
and
other
marriage
cases,
to
the
buying
brightness
and
can
selling
flare
on the
when a
stock
fresh
market.
stream of gas arrives.
The
Each
striking
animal
fact
is
associated
that the
with
black hole
specific
itself
numbers,
remains
colors,
dark.
flowers, and even
Yet
directions
the area
that are
surrounding
thought
it
to be
can
lucky.
become one of the most luminous
A rabbit,
regions
for example,
in the universe.
should focus on maintaining their health
By
and
examining
might find
that
luck in
radiance,
love and
astronomers
harmony
discover
in this
how
year
matter
of the
behaves
horse,
under intense
while
gravity.
needing patience for a
And they
possible
can
career
deduce the
delays.
properties of the unseen
Perhaps
object
they dress in their
exerting
lucky
the
colors of green and yellow, or
This
they might place
glowing
vases
material
of bamboo
gathers
and
into a
fishermen
rotating
around the
structure
home, known as an accretion
Alongside
disk.
these
astrological beliefs,
when gas
the
moves
New Year
toward a black
celebrations
hole,
are
it
linked to
rarely
folklore,
drops straight inward.
whilst the days that follow
It
New
typically
Year's
carries
Day
sideways
involve
motion,
more time
meaning
well spent
it
amongst
has
friends
angular
and family.
momentum. There are also specific
Rather than
activities
plunging directly
which
in,
celebrate certain
the gas
gods.
forms a flattened,
The
spinning
fifth day,
disk,
for example,
with the inner
is known
regions
as the
orbiting
god of
more
wealth's
quickly
birthday,
than the outer ones.
and many families will attend
And
a
that
special
difference in
ceremony
speed
at their
creates
local
friction
temple.
and turbulence.
Afterwards, at
Allowing
home,
the gas to lose
firecrackers
energy
will be lit
and
in
spiral
the hopes of
inward
catching the god's
gradually.
attention and ensuring wealth
In some
and
systems,
prosperity
the
is
disk
brought
is
into the
thin
home.
and brilliant.
In some
while in
regions
others,
of northern
it is
China,
thick and
those
turbulent,
treasure-like golden
depending
dumplings
on how much
will be eaten
material
once
is
again.
available. Near the
Whilst
inner
elsewhere,
edge,
a selection
gravity
of fruits,
becomes
flowers,
so intense
teas, and
that
candles
even a
are
small
laid out
shift
as an
in
offering to
distance
the god.
causes a large change in
People
orbital
generally
speed.
return to work on the 8th day,
There,
marking the
temperatures
return with a
climb
corporate
sharply,
dinner in
and
which
radiation
employees are
streams
thanked for the past
outward.
year's efforts.
The disk
Then,
becomes
on the
a
9th
kind
day
of
of the festival,
glowing map
it's
of
the birthday
gravity,
of the Jade Emperor,
and its light carries
ruler of
information
heaven.
about orbits,
This
magnetic
provides
fields,
reason for more
and
family
the geometry
gatherings
of space-time,
and delicious food
close
for
to the
some.
event horizon.
It's a time to once again visit a
Accretion
temple
disks
where
can shine
incense is
brighter
burned
than
and prayers
entire
are made.
galaxies. Extra
This
special
sounds
offerings are
impossible
given, including
until you
fresh
remember
fruits
what a
and
galaxy
candies of
is.
every color. A galaxy
In
is
the southern
hundreds
regions in
billions
particular,
of stars.
people will craft marvelous
Yet an
sculptures
actively
from colored
feeding
sugarcane.
supermassive black hole
Laying this out upon
can
tables
release
in the
enormous
temple.
energy from a region
The word for
that
sugarcane
is tiny
sounds
compared
very
with the
close
galaxy's
to
full
thank
size
you in southern dialects,
The reason
which
is
makes it all the more
efficiency.
meaningful as an offering to
When
the Jade
matter
Emperor.
falls deep into a gravitational
On
well,
the 15th
a
day of
surprising
Chinese New
fraction
Year,
of its
the
energy
celebrations
can be
conclude
converted
in
into
truly
radiation
spectacular fashion
before it
with
disappears.
the famed Lantern Festival.
In some cases,
This
that
always
energy
coincides
output
with the full
can
moon
dominate
and
the
has a
light
rich
from
history
every
stretching
star in
back
the host
thousands
galaxy
of years.
combined.
There are a number
Seen
of
from
different
far away,
theories about the
bright
origins
core
of
can
the
look
Lantern
like a
Festival,
star.
even though it
Some
is
claim
powered by
that
a
it
black
originated
hole,
in the Qin
Ming
dynasty
or
as an
billions of
appeal
times
from the
heavier
emperor
than the
to
sun.
the deity who controlled
These
the
brilliant
destiny of
objects
the
are
human
called
world.
quasars,
Wishing for fine
They
weather
can be visible
and good
across
fortune.
the observable
Others claim
universe,
that it honors
which
the
means
Taoist
they let us
God
study the early
who descends
cosmos
to Earth
by
on
using
the
black
15th
holes
of the first
as
month
beacons to inspect human
Some
behavior.
black holes launch
and award
powerful
blessings
jets
of
of particles into
misfortunes
space.
accordingly. Not all of the infilling
Worshippers
material
hoped to
ends up
please him
swallowed.
with the spectacle of
In some
glowing
systems,
lanterns.
a portion is redirected
Yet
into
others
narrow
support a
beams
legend that
shoot
explains the
outward
festival
from the poles.
as an effort to trick a
These
god
jets are made
rather
of
than
charged
worship them.
particles moving at extreme
After villagers
speeds,
hunted and killed
and they
a
are
beautiful
guided by
crane
intense
favored
magnetic
by the
fields
divine
around the
Jade
black hole
Emperor
and its disk.
He decided to punish them
Jets
by
can
burning their
shine
village
in
to the
radio
ground
waves
on
visible
the
light
15th day
and
of the new
X-rays,
year.
depending on their energy
A wise
and
man
environment.
suggested a plan.
They can also vary in
On the
brightness
14th,
as if the engine
15th,
turns up
and
and
16th
down.
days of the year.
What makes this
Every
especially
family in the
gripping
village
is
should
that
hang
the jets
red
can carry
lanterns
more
outside
energy
their homes,
than the black hole
set
receives
up
from the
bonfires
matter
on
it
the
actually
streets,
consumes,
and explode firecrackers.
The system acts like
so
a
that the
natural
village would
particle
appear to be in
accelerator,
flames,
powered by gravity
and
and
rotation.
rotation.
When the troops sent by the Jade
studying
Emperor
jets,
to set fire to the
scientists
village
probe how
arrived on the
magnetic fields
15th
behave
day,
in the most
they thought
extreme
the village
conditions
was
we
already
know,
ablaze, and how energy
returned
can be
to
focused
report
into
to
their
astonishingly
master.
one
From that day
narrow
on,
streams.
people celebrate this
These
escape
jets can
by
extend
carrying
far
lanterns
beyond
on
the
their host
streets
galaxies
and exploding
A
firecrackers.
galaxy is already
Today,
huge,
the festival has
so
become
the
more
scale here
symbolic
is
in
hard to
nature,
hold in your mind.
with lanterns thought to
Some
illuminate the
jets
year
travel
ahead.
so far that they reach
Equally,
well into
they
the
provide a
space
physical
between
means of letting
galaxies,
go of the past,
forming
when they are
enormous
released
radio
into the air
windows
or
where they
water.
slam into thinner gas.
Over the years,
London
along the
festivals
way,
have
they
become
can
more
punch through
elaborate
surrounding
and extravagant,
material
and
attracting
carve out
interest
long
from people
channels
in the
all around
galaxy's
the
halo.
world. From Las
This
Vegas
matters
to New
because
Zealand,
galaxies do
crowds
not
of
evolve
people
in
flock
isolation.
to see the light shows.
They live in a larger
including
environment
huge paper
filled with
figurines
gas
and
that
monuments,
can cool,
collapse,
and in some
and
places,
form new
dramatic
stars,
ice
a
sculptures.
powerful jet, their
can
dazzling
heat that
colors
gas,
contrasting
stir
against
it,
the darkness,
or push it outward, changing
And
the
with that,
future of
let's
star
return to the
formation
festival at hand.
across an entire region.
All around you are lanterns of
In
every
that sense,
shape and size,
a black
in
hole
many
can
different
influence
colors.
places
Some
that
are
are
adorned
vastly
with
larger
puzzles
than the
and
black
riddles,
hole itself.
whilst others carry messages
the
of
central
hope
engine
and prosperity.
is small, but
And
the
beside them
consequences
too are paper
can be
decorations of
galaxy-sized,
every kind,
flowers
larger
and
fish, birds
That
and
contrast
buildings,
is one reason
lit
jets
by an
remain
inner bulb.
one of the most dramatic signs of
They are a
black hole
burst of
activity.
color and beauty shining
Jets
out across
travel
the
close
landscape.
to the speed of light.
Beneath the
When
lights,
something moves
the faces
that
of
fast,
many happy
the
families
universe
are brought
starts
into
playing
view.
tricks on your
Crowds of
expectations.
Auric children and their
Motion
parents
near
are
light
revealed for
speed
just a moment,
changes how
before
brightness
once again
looks,
returning to
how
the darkness.
time intervals appear,
Many
and
of the
how
children carry
signals
their own
arrive.
homemade paper lanterns.
A jet
planning
aimed
to
roughly
release them
toward
later.
Earth can seem brighter than
Viewed
it would
from a
otherwise
distance
be
in the evening,
because its
It
radiation
looks
is
almost
boosted
as though the
by its
lanterns are
motion.
moving independently.
The jet
like
can
stars
also appear to
floating
change
across the
position
land.
rapidly, creating
Following
the
path
illusion
of these
of faster
glittering
than
lights,
light motion.
you pass more
across
paper
the sky.
sculptures, each one more dazzling and
Nothing is
unique than the
actually
last.
outrunning light.
There's a giant yellow
It is a
dragon
viewing
more
effect
than 10 feet
caused
long
by
in
geometry
size.
and timing.
Its body displaying an
The
intricate
particles
blanket
inside
of
the
red
jet carry
scales upon yellow
enormous
ones.
energy. And
Bright
when they
red
interact
spines
with
decorate the
magnetic
top of its
fields,
tail,
they can
whilst its
produce
huge face
intense
is framed
radiation
with green
across
whiskers
many
and
wavelengths.
horns. And within
These
its open
speeds
mouth,
also
a
mean
giant
jets
red
can remain
tongue is
narrow
visible.
over long
Upon it,
distances,
a bright
because
yellow
the
light
flow
bulb.
has so much momentum.
The handheld lanterns
When you
swirl
watch
around
a
to the
jet,
dragon's
you are
base,
watching
pausing
relativity,
every so often
not as an
as people
abstract
stop
idea,
and stare.
air, but as an observable behavior.
The gentle
written
pitter-patter of
across the
footsteps
sky.
fills the air.
Magnetic
Occasionally
fields help
punctuated
shape
by
and
gasps,
power these
giggles,
jets.
and various
Gravity
expressions
supplies
of
the
wonder
raw
and
energy
delight.
by pulling matter
Not
inward.
far from the dragon,
But
the
magnetic
narrow
fields
streets
help
open
decide
out,
where that
forming a
energy
large
goes.
town square where
In
a
the
market
swirling
might
flow
be held
near
in
a black
daylight.
hole, Magnetic
Here
field
stands
lines
a
can be
giant
stretched,
marquee tent,
twisted, and
its entire
amplified
frame
like
glowing
elastic
with purple
threads
and
caught
white
in a
fairy
whirlpool.
lights. And inside,
Those fields can
at its
channel
heart,
charged
a
particles into
towering
tide
lotus
streams
flower gazes
and
down
keep the
upon
jet
those gathered
columnated
beneath it.
instead of spreading
Its
out.
vast pink petals
They can also tap
slowly
into the rotation
opening
of the
and
disk,
closing,
and in
as
some
if it were a
models,
living,
even the rotation
breathing
of the
bloom.
black hole itself.
All around
Transferring
it, long
rotational
strands of
energy
fairy lights
outwards.
cascade
This
from the
is why
ceiling,
jets are so
casting a
closely
glow over
studied
the
in
food
radio
stalls below,
astronomy.
and the many cheerful
Because
visitors
magnetic
enjoying their
processes
treats.
leave strong
Rice
signatures
balls are a
in
favorite
radio
here,
light.
and are traditionally eaten
The details
during the Lantern
are still
Festival.
debated.
The sweet and
the
the
basic
basic
picture is
delight.
clear.
They are made
Without
from glutinous
magnetism,
rice flour.
The outflow would
black
be
sesame
weaker,
seeds,
messier,
sugar,
and less
peanuts,
focused.
and butter. With it,
A system that begins
repeatedly
as
in
falling
flour
gas
before being
can
dropped
end up
into
as a
boiling
beam
water.
that influences
They resemble
an
large
entire
white
galaxy.
snowballs until someone takes a
Black
bite.
holes can slowly spin
That is
as
when
they
the
consume
sweet,
matter.
nutty filling
Spin
spills
is a
out
kind
from
of
the
memory
center.
of how material arrived.
Beyond their delicious flavor,
If a black hole
the
feeds
round
from a
shape
disk
is
that
believed
rotates
to
in a
symbolize
steady direction,
unity and family
the incoming
reunion.
matter carries angular momentum.
To the right of the
And that
marquee,
can gradually
the path
increase the
stretches
black
toward
hole's
the
rotation.
waterfront, growing
Over
ever
long
more
periods,
dazzling and
this can lead to
dreamlike
very
as it
rapid
continues.
spins. If
On
feeding
both
happens
sides
in
of the
bursts
walkway,
from different
rows
directions,
of trees
the spin
display
can change
small
in a more
cylindrical
complicated
lanterns,
way,
suspended
sometimes
from
speeding
their
up,
branches,
sometimes being partially
and in
cancelled.
some, giant
Birches
paper
can
pandas
also
have
add
been
or
expertly
alter
positioned,
spin, depending on how the
appearing
two
in a
black
range
holes
of
were
lifelike,
oriented before
if
they
comical
combined.
positions.
Spin matters because it affects
Some
the
sit at the
structure of the
tree's
region
base,
near the event
chewing
horizon.
lazily on bamboo.
It changes which
as they
orbits
look
are
out at
stable,
the passers-by.
how close matter can circle before
Others
plunging,
are climbing midway up
and how
the trunk,
energy may be extracted
or further
into
still,
jets.
along the tree's
In a
upper
sense,
branches.
the spin
One
is part of the
particular
personality
panda
of a black
is
hole.
almost entirely
It carries
hidden.
the history of how
But
it grew,
for those brightly lit
into spacetime
eyes
itself.
peeping out from within the tree's
A
dense
spinning black
canopy,
hole drags space around
down
with
the
it.
center of the path.
This
a
is one
series
of the
of
strangest
freestanding
predictions
arches
of general
beam with
relativity.
bright white lights.
And it is not just philosophical.
With lanterns still in hand,
Rotation does not
groups
merely
of families,
spin the object,
friends,
and
and couples
twists the
stroll
spacetime
beneath
around it.
these heavenly arches.
Near a rapidly
one after
rotating
another.
black hole, this dragging
Eventually
can
they
become
arrive
so
at the
strong
river's
that
edge,
everything nearby
where the light
is
of the
forced to
silver
rotate
moon
in the same
illuminates
direction.
a vast expanse
Even
of
light
water.
paths are affected. This
Moonlight
creates regions
dances
where
across
staying
its
still
surface,
in the usual sense
flickering
is no
rhythmically
longer
with the
possible.
ebb and flow of the
The
water.
effect can influence the inner
Upon
disk,
the water,
change
there are
how matter
countless
falls
large
inward,
ferry boats,
and alter the
their
direction of
seats
jets.
filled with
It also
locals
changes
and
how
tourists
objects
looking to enjoy the
process,
festival on the river,
which is a slow turning of orbital
sail out into
orientation
the
over
water,
time.
gliding between
When you
giant
picture the
floating
environment,
sculptures
it
of
helps to
swans
imagine
and
spacetime
peacocks,
as a moving
ships,
medium
and trees,
rather than a static stage.
There's even a parade of the
Black
12
hole's
zodiac
rotation
animals,
makes that medium
each raised
swirl.
upon an individual
Matter
floating
does not
pillar
only fall
high
through
above
space,
the water.
It falls through a space
This
that is
causes
itself
much
being pulled into
excitement
motion.
amongst the children.
This effect
who
is
gawk
called
and
frame
ponder at
dragging.
the sight of their own zodiac
The frame
animals
here means the
brought
local
to life
reference
in
frame
such
you would use
marvelous
to
fashion.
define directions and rotation.
Music plays in the
normal
distance.
conditions, you
A
can imagine
melodic
space
tune
as
echoing
fixed,
across
while
the harbor
objects move
above
through
the
it.
sound of waves
Frame
lapping
dragging
against
says
the
that
boat.
near a rotating mass,
The air
spacetime
is
itself
fresh
is
and
part of the
cool,
motion.
though it still
It
carries
has been
the
measured
smell of
around
those
Earth
sweet
with precision
and sticky
satellite
rice
experiments.
balls.
But near a black
Eventually,
hole, the effect
each of
is
the
far
boats
stronger
pauses in
and
position,
far more consequential.
signaling the time
In black hole
when the
systems,
lanterns
it can
are
cause
released.
the inner regions of an orbiting
One
flow
by
to
one,
precess,
adults
which can
and
lead
children
to distinctive
lean
patterns
against
of
the ferry's
variability
railings,
in the light we
carefully
observe. It
dropping
can
their
also
lanterns
influence
into
how
the
matter
water below.
aligns over time,
As
changing
they do
the
so,
geometry of the
some
disk.
whisper prayers.
The
and
name
hopes
is
for a
technical,
prosperous new
but the
year.
idea is vivid.
Then they continue
Rotation
to gaze
reaches
as
out
their
into the
lanterns
fabric
float
of reality
away upon the
and
waves,
tugs on it.
surrounded by
A
hundreds,
black hole is
if
not merely an
thousands
object
of
that
others.
spins. It is
It's
a source of
star-filled
rotating
sky
space-time,
painted across
and that
the
alters
water.
the motion of everything nearby.
Soon after,
the
the
faster
New Year
a black hole
celebrations
turns,
end,
the more
as they
dramatic
began,
its influence becomes.
with fireworks of every
Spin
shape
determines
and
where the
shade
most intense
lighting up
activity
the
occurs.
skies.
In a non-rotating
Only
case,
not
stable
exactly
orbits
the same,
end at a
because
specific
now,
distance from the
far
center.
beneath the fireworks,
With rapid rotation,
the lights of
matter can
countless
circle
paper
closer
lanterns
along
drift
certain paths,
upwards as
which
well.
allows it to grow hotter and
Released
radiate
on
more
land,
powerfully.
they float
before
slowly
falling
into
inward.
the sky.
Fast
Carrying
spin
with them
also
people's
amplifies
hopes
the
and
twisting
dreams
of space-time,
for the future.
which can reshape the inner
It's a
disk
truly
and affect how
breathtaking
jets are
sight.
launched.
a magical and
There is a
meaningful
limit,
beginning
however.
to the new year
A
ahead.
black hole cannot rotate
An entire
endlessly
sky
faster,
filled with hope,
because at some point,
love,
the physics of
and
formation and accretion prevents
Welcome to
additional
Get
spin-up.
Sleepy,
Many
where
observed
we
systems
listen,
seem to have
we relax,
high spins,
and
and
we
measuring
get
that
sleepy.
spin is an active
My
area
name's
of
Thomas.
research.
Thank you
Scientists
so much
study
for
features
tuning
such
in.
as the shape of X-ray spectra
Tonight, we'll
and the
be
way light
exploring
from the
the
inner
festival
disk
of
is warped
Chinese
by
New
gravity.
Year, along with its
What makes the
traditions,
subject so
rituals,
compelling is
and
that
beliefs.
spin transforms a black hole
We'll
from
step
a
into the
static
world
trap
of Lunar
into a
New
dynamic
Year
engine.
celebrations, and
The more quickly
specifically
it rotates,
the
the
Lantern
more it
Festival
resembles a
that
machine
closes
built from
this
gravity
holiday period.
itself. Black holes
While
have
this
temperature,
time of festivity
despite
is
appearing
enjoyed
completely
throughout
dark.
mainland China,
This is one
it's
of the
also
great
celebrated
surprises of
in
modern
many
physics.
other countries worldwide.
Classical black holes seem
It's
like
thought
perfect
that
absorbers
more than
that never emit
1.5
anything.
billion people celebrate
Quantum theory
every
changes
year.
that picture.
I
It
have the
implies
pleasure
that
of
black
reading
holes
this
can
one
be
for you.
associated with
And
the
it was
temperature,
written
and
by
the temperature
Joe Steele.
depends on
And
their
to
mass.
all our listeners that
The
celebrate,
larger the black
I
hole,
wish you a
the colder
very
it
happy
is.
Lunar
The smaller it
New
is,
Year.
the hotter it becomes.
Now, my friends,
This
let's
ties
give
black
ourselves a
holes to
moment
thermodynamics,
unwind and
which is the
relax.
physics of heat, energy,
Begin by
and entropy.
closing your eyes.
It also ties them to
Find
the quantum
a position
vacuum,
that feels
the
comfortable
restless
to you,
background of fields
and
that
bring
never
your
truly
attention
sit still.
into your body. The idea that
Settle
an
yourself
object defined
with a
by
couple of
darkness
deep
and
relaxing
inescapability can still be assigned
Breathing
a
in
temperature
fully,
is more than a
holding for a
fun
moment,
detail.
and then
It is a
gently
clue that
releasing the
gravity
air
and quantum
back out.
physics are entangled in ways we still
Now,
do not fully
see if you
understand.
can
Start to imagine a
When you
point of
hear
light
that
a black hole
at
has a
your very
temperature.
core,
You are hearing the
bright,
universe hint
soothing.
that our categories are
Sense it
incomplete,
warming your body
they
from
can slowly
within
lose mass
and
through a
expelling
process
any
called
negative
Hawking
or
radiation.
unwanted energies
The
your body
key
may
is
be
that
holding.
quantum fields near the event horizon
Picture that light
behave
expanding
differently from
outwards,
fields in calm,
filling your
flat
chest,
space.
legs,
In Hawking's
arms,
picture, the
neck,
black hole is
and
not
head.
perfectly black. Over
Watch
immense
as the
timescales,
expanding light
it can emit
fills you
radiation
with its
and
soothing
lose
glow.
a tiny amount of mass as a result.
Imagine that every
You can think of it as the
person
black
on
hole
Earth
paying an energy
has a
cost
tiny inner
associated
light,
with the horizon's
just like
presence in a quantum world.
Watch as
This is
every
not a
person's
stream you
light
could see with a
expands
telescope for
outwards
ordinary black
until
holes.
the world
It
is
is
a vibrant
incredibly faint.
and interconnected
Still,
pattern
the implication
of
is
billions
profound.
of soothing light.
Black holes
And now,
are not just endpoints.
follow my voice as
They
we
can have a
travel
long-term
to a little
evolution
town at
that ends
nighttime
in principle
with, a silver
with evaporation.
moon glowing overhead.
That turns the black hole story
This
into something
is
with a
where
beginning,
our story
a
begins.
life, and a final chapter.
You're standing beneath
Even
a
if
dark
that final
night
chapter
sky,
takes far longer
illuminated
than
by
the current
glow
age of the
a
our
full
universe,
silver moon.
it also creates new puzzles
It's a beautiful,
about what
calm
happens to
night,
information,
and so dark
which is why the
that
idea
buildings,
remains so
alleyways,
central.
and people around
Hawking
you
radiation
are
is
mere
far too
shadows
weak
your
to
eyes.
detect for large black holes.
Homes
For
and
stellar and
businesses
supermassive
throughout the
black
area
holes,
turned
the
off
predicted
their
temperature
electric
is
lights at
extremely
sundown.
low, far colder
This
than the
only
cosmic
adds to the
microwave
magic
background
of the
that
festival,
fills the universe.
as the eye is drawn to
That
those
matters
bright
because an object
lanterns
colder than
that
its
hang between
environment
streets
tends to
and in
absorb more
doorways.
energy than it emits.
This is
So a
the
large
Lantern
black hole
Festival,
would be
marking
overwhelmed
the
by
end
incoming
of the
background
Lunar New Year
radiation,
celebrations
which hides any
being
tiny
held in
quantum
this
glow
village
it
in
might
China.
produce. Even in an
Lanterns
ideal
are decorative
laboratory, the
objects
signal
seen
would be
all through the new
unimaginably
year.
faint.
For
This
their
is why
atmospheric
Hawking
qualities,
radiation remains
for
a theoretical
antiquity,
triumph,
tradition,
rather than an
and their
observational
delicate,
one.
soft glow.
Scientists test
But
the underlying
ones
ideas
used
during the
indirect
Lantern
ways,
Festival,
are
including
no
experiments
ordinary
with
lanterns.
analog systems.
They tend to be bigger,
that mimic horizon-like
more ornate,
behavior in
and
fluids,
themed with the
optical
zodiac
setups.
animals, showcasing this
Those are not
special
black
season.
holes, but they can
Lunar
reproduce
New Year
some of the
marks the
relevant
end of winter
mathematics and the beginning of springtime.
The practical
in
challenge
accordance with the
is
traditional
part of what
Chinese
keeps the
calendar
topic
compelling.
Unlike the
A
Gregorian
prediction that
calendar,
reshaped
which splits
physics
the year
is
into
still
12
beyond
months,
direct
the
measurement
traditional
for the black
Chinese
holes we
calendar
actually
views the
observe.
year through 24
The
lunar
universe
terms.
has handed us a clue.
The first term
but it has
begins
not
with
yet
the new
given us
moon
the
appearing
easy
between
way
the
to
21st
check
of
it.
January and the 20th
Small
of February.
black holes would
As
evaporate
such, the
much
dates of the
faster than
festival
large
differ
ones.
from year to year,
The mass
depending on that
dependence
year's
flips
lunar calendar.
intuition. A
Celebrations
smaller
may
black
last
hole
for
has a
15
higher
days in
temperature
total,
in the Hawking
though
picture,
often only the first
which
7
means
days
it
are a
would
public
radiate
holiday.
more strongly, lose
There's a great
mass
deal
more
of preparation that
quickly,
takes
and
place
speed up
before
its
the
own
festival
evaporation
officially
as it
begins.
shrinks. It is
Prior
a
to the holiday
runaway
itself,
process.
it's
As it
common in
gets
southern
smaller,
China to eat
it
a
gets
New Year
hotter.
cake, also
And
known as
as it
rice
gets
cake.
hotter,
It evaporates.
This is a combination of glutinous rice flour
In the final
with sugars,
stages,
fruits,
the theory
and spices.
suggests
The
it is often
radiation could
steamed
become
rather than
intense.
baked.
Historically,
Perhaps
it was
ending in a
provided
brief
as an
burst.
offering to the kitchen god.
This is one reason
most
scientists
important
are
of
interested
all
in the
domestic
possibility
deities.
of tiny black holes.
One of the kitchen
from the
god's
early
duties,
universe.
according to Taoist folk
If such
beliefs,
objects
is
ever
to report
existed
to the
with
Jade
right
Emperor
masses
before the new
their
year
final
begins,
moments might leave
detailing the
detectable
deeds of the
signatures,
family
such
during
as
the past
flashes
year,
of high
to
energy
see if
particles
they would have good
or
fortune.
gamma's rays.
It was believed
The details
that after
depend
eating
on
the sticky
unknown
cake,
physics,
the kitchen god's
including
mouth
what
would be
happens
so
at the
stuck
smallest scales,
that he wouldn't be
where
able to
quantum
tell
gravity
of any
takes over.
transgressions.
Still,
in some regions,
the overall
families
lesson
might
is
also pour
striking.
wine over the portrait
Big
of
black
the kitchen
holes
god,
change slowly,
so that he will be happy,
almost like
and report
geological
only
features
nice
of
things.
space-time.
The eating
Small
of this
ones
cake
would be
is
fleeting
thought to bring
and
about
violent,
much good
more
luck,
like sparks,
and leftover pieces are often
no
sent out as
evaporating
gifts
black
to friends
hole
and
has
family.
ever been observed.
Its name
That
is
absence
actually
is
a
meaningful
homonym for
because it limits
higher
how many
year,
small black holes can
indicating
exist
a good
and
year
what their
ahead.
masses could be.
In the week prior
Astronomers
to
look
New
for
Year,
signals that could
families
match an
are kept
evaporation
very
event,
busy with housework
such as
and
unusual
chores.
bursts of high-energy
Homes are
radiation.
cleaned until their flesh
But none
and span
has been
an
confirmed
act
as a black
which
center
is as symbolic
O
as
finale.
it is practical.
There are also broader
It's
searches
the
for the
washing,
effects small
dusting,
black holes
and
might have
tidying
had over
away
cosmic
of
history,
the old year that
including
has
how they
passed,
would contribute
and
to
the
background
bringing in
radiation
of the
or
new
alter
one.
the early universe's chemistry.
Every effort is made
The lack of
to
a detection
ensure that
does
the
not
home
disprove
is a
the
welcoming
idea.
environment
It tells us
for
that
the
if
good
these
luck
objects
and
exist,
prosperity
they are
of the
either
year
rare
ahead.
or they occupy mass ranges
Once
that
the
make them
house is
hard to
clean,
spot.
it's decorated
In science,
the lucky
non-detections
colours of
can be
red
as
and
informative
gold,
as detections,
with green
because they draw
added
boundaries
to symbolize
around what
the
is
coming
possible.
springtime growth.
Here, the boundary is a tantalizing
Lanterns
one.
are hung from ceilings.
A famous prediction
and
says
decorative
black
paper
holes can fade
cuttings
away.
and pictures are
The
stuck
universe
to
has not yet
walls.
shown us a clear example,
Long strips
so the mystery
of red
stays
paper
open and
bearing
sharp.
poetic messages of hope
Black
and
holes
fortune
are among the
in
simplest
beautiful
objects
calligraphy
allowed by physics.
are hung beside
This is the
and
contrast
above
that
the
makes
main
them so
doorway
compelling.
to the
The
home.
environments around black holes
Colorful
are messy,
ornaments are brought
bright,
out into
turbulent,
view, as
and
are vases
chaotic.
filled with blooming
Yet
orchids,
the black holes
peach blossoms,
themselves
or
are remarkably
tangerine
spare
trees
in how they are
in a
described.
celebration of approaching
They do not carry
springtime.
features like mountains,
Some
atmospheres,
families go a step
or
further,
chemical layers.
painting their doors and
In the
window
simplest
frames
view,
in
once a
rich,
black hole
vibrant
settles down,
red.
only
And it's
a
not
small
only the
set of
home
properties
that receives
matters
a
for the
makeover,
external universe,
but also the people
that
themselves.
simplicity is not a weakness.
Haircuts are booked
It
in,
makes black
and
holes
new clothing is
powerful
purchased
test objects,
so that one might
because the
fully
theory
embrace
gives
that feeling of a
precise
fresh
predictions
start
with
from
fewer
head
moving
to toe.
parts. It also
Outstanding
makes the
debts are
information
paid off.
puzzle feel
Thank you
sharper.
gifts
Sent out. If something
And loose
complex
ends tied
falls
up
in
wherever possible.
the outside description
At
looks
last,
simple.
the celebrations begin on
Understanding
Chinese New
how
Year's
those
Eve.
statements can both
The
be
feast
true
known as
is
the
one of the reasons
reunion
black
dinner.
holes sit at the center of modern
This is
theoretical
perhaps
physics.
the most special meal
They are
in
like
a family's
a clean
year.
mathematical object,
A time when families
embedded
come
in
together
a very
with
noisy
even those
universe.
living far away, traveling
That
home,
combination
to partake
is
in the
rare
celebrations.
and scientifically
Everything
priceless.
is a shared experience.
A black hole is
From
fully
preparing the
described
food
by
and
mass,
setting the table
spin,
to eating
and
the food
electric
itself
charge.
as the new
This
year
idea
is welcomed
often
in.
called the no hair
The actual
picture.
meal differs from
And it
region
is
to
one of the
region,
cleanest
though in
statements
general,
in modern
what's served
physics.
is a banquet of meats, fish,
No matter what
vegetables,
forms the
and
black
dumplings.
hole,
In some
and
regions,
no matter what fell
golden
in later,
dumplings are made to have
the
the
outside
appearance
world
of
can
edible
only measure
treasure, a small
like the
set
gold
of traits
ingots
once
formerly
the system
used in
settles
imperial
down.
China. Mass
Long
tells you
noodles
how
are often
strong the
served
gravity is.
in the hopes that those
Spin
eating
tells
will have
you how
long and
space-time
happy
is
lives.
twisted by rotation.
Fish, which is a
Charge
homonym for
tells you
plenty,
how it would
is often
interact
served as
electrically.
well.
At least
Many
in
people
principle.
will eat peanuts or seeds.
Everything else,
as a symbolic
like the
coat
original
for
star's
children.
chemistry or a swallowed
Oranges and
planet's
tangerines
shape,
disappears
symbol
from
of
the
family
outside
togetherness.
description.
And candy, that
may be eaten
simplicity
with hope
is
for a
not
sweet
just a
year
curiosity.
ahead.
It lets scientists
dish
test
is as
gravity
symbolic
with
as it
unusual
is
precision,
delicious.
because the
On
predictions
Chinese New
are
Year's
sharp.
Eve,
If
families
the
generally
real
stay
universe
home
ever shows
playing
a
mahjong
settled black
or
hole
other games
with
until
extra
midnight.
measurable features,
Others
that would
have
be a
parties
major clue
or reminisce
that
about
our
years
theory
past.
is missing something
It is believed
fundamental.
that children who stay up late on
Most
New Year's
real
Eve
black
will
holes
increase the
have
lifespan
almost
of
no
their parents.
electric charge.
In some regions,
Charge
the
is
dumplings
easy to
cooked
build in a
earlier
laboratory,
won't be eaten
but
until it's
space
nearly
is not a
midnight.
quiet laboratory.
When
The
the
regions
regions eventually
black
strikes
holes
12,
are filled with
the
plasma.
skies are lit
And
with
plasma
stunning
carries
fireworks
both positive
of every
and negative
pattern,
charges
shape,
that move
and
freely.
color.
Chinese New Year's Day, if a
brings
black hole
more
gained
opportunities
even
to
a
spend
modest
time
net
with family
charge
and loved
it would
ones.
immediately start attracting
Most people
opposite
will spend the
charges
day
from
with
its
their
extended
extended
families, particularly
Those charges
more
would
elderly
fall in
relatives
and
like
neutralize
grandparents.
it.
On top
Mandarin
of that,
oranges
any
are
strong
exchanged,
charge would
symbols
repel
of good
charges
fortune
of the same
and
sign,
family togetherness,
which makes it hard to keep
while
piling
married
charge
family
on in the
members
first place.
are known to give out red
The result
envelopes
is
containing
that
cash.
astrophysical black holes end up close
These
to
beautiful
electrically
envelopes
neutral
are
most of the
adorned
time.
with auspicious messages.
That is
written
useful
in gold
because it
lettering,
means their behavior is
offering
dominated
even
by
more good
gravity
wishes
and
to their
rotation
fortunate recipients.
rather than electric effects.
Traditionally, they
It
are
also
given by
explains
older
why the
family
most
members
dramatic
to
signals
younger
we
ones,
see,
with
like
the
hot
hope
disks
of
and
easing
jets,
any challenges
are not
that may
powered
lie
by the
ahead.
black hole acting like a giant
Businesses
battery.
also hand out red
They are
envelopes
powered
to their
by
employees,
motion,
all in the
magnetism,
spirit of
and
welcoming
gravity
a smooth
working
year
together
to come.
in extreme conditions.
Money is usually
Black
given
holes
in
can
multiples
merge
of
with
8,
other black holes.
or in amounts
For a long
that
time,
end with the
this
number
sounded
8.
like a rare
Since
event
8 is
because
regarded
black
as
holes
the
are
luckiest
small
number.
targets in a huge
It is
galaxy.
also given in even amounts. as
Nature
odd numbers
found ways
are
to make it
considered
happen
unlucky.
anyway. However, the
Two
number
massive
4 is
stars
carefully
can
avoided
form as a pair,
because the word for
live
4
as a pair,
sounds similar to the
and
word for
die
death
as a
in
pair.
many Chinese dialects. If both collapse
For
into
this
black
reason,
holes,
the
hotels and
system
businesses
can remain
often
bound.
skip the 4th floor.
Star
And restaurant
clusters
tables
offer
may jump
another
from
route.
3 straight
In
to
dense
5.
clusters, close
The
gravitational
leaves surrounding
encounters
luck
can
play a
swap
central
partners
role in Chinese
and
culture,
harden pairs,
especially during
which
the New
means
Year
the black
period.
holes end up in
Just
tighter
as many
and
traditions aim to
tighter
invite
orbits.
good fortune, there are also
Once a pair
activities
is
people
close
avoid
enough,
because they are
gravity
thought to
itself
bring bad luck.
starts draining orbital
On
energy
Chinese New Year's
through
Day,
gravitational
washing
waves.
one's hair or clothing
The
is
orbit
thought to wash
shrinks.
away good
The
luck,
black holes
while
circle
sweeping
faster,
or needlework
and the
are
finale
thought to deplete a
becomes
person's wealth.
inevitable.
Certain words
The
are
last
taboo,
moments
like
are
the number 4
unimaginably
and
fast.
porridge, should not
Two
be eaten,
invisible objects
as it's said to
race
bring
around
about
each
poverty.
other,
There are other
and then become
superstitions
one,
that last throughout the
leaving behind
15-day
a
period,
single remnant,
like
whose
not
mess
using
and
scissors
spin
or knives
carry the history
because they cut
of
away
that
wealth,
violent union.
or wearing black or
When
white,
black holes
which are
merge,
associated with
they
sadness
release energy
and poverty
in the form
and funerals,
of gravitational
respectively.
waves.
The energy does not escape as light.
Even the fireworks
since
that
there may
paint
be
the
little
sky night
or
after
no
night
matter nearby,
are thought to scare away
Instead,
evil spirits.
it travels outward,
as are the firecrackers
ripples in
and
bamboo
space-time
lit
itself,
below,
and the spectacular
as the two
parades
black
of lion
holes
troops
spiral
that
closer
fill the
together.
streets.
The waves intensify
Out of all that
and
happens
speed up
throughout the New Year
like a
period,
rising chirp.
these parades are
In the
amongst the
final
most
moments,
unique.
The system
fabulous.
releases a tremendous amount of energy
Watching
in a
the
brief
lie-like
burst.
movements of these magical
Yet by the
creatures
time that signal
is like
reaches
watching
Earth,
a festive
it
work of
arrives
art.
as a shift in distance.
Indeed, the
smaller
Chinese
than the
lion
width
costumes
of an atom
showcase every shade
What
of
was
red,
once immense
gold, and
becomes
green,
a whisper.
all upon the richest
After
and
the
most
merger,
sumptuous
the newly
silks
formed
and black
furs.
hole vibrates like
Their
a
massive
struck bell
heads are
made of
particularly
space-time.
impressive.
A mold
The
of
pattern of
papia
those waves
constructed
carries
over a
the
bamboo
imprint of
frame,
its mass and
meticulously painted
That
and decorated.
is why these
They are as
detections are
strange
more
and
than dramatic
magical
events.
as one could ever
They are
imagine.
precise measurements
concealing
that
the
allow us to
expert
test
performers
our deepest
inside
understanding
to
of
the
gravity,
point where one
under
might
the most
easily forget
extreme
that they aren't
conditions.
somehow magical creatures brought to
Gravitational
life.
waves stretch and
They even
compress
move like
space
lions,
as they move
leaping
through
about
it.
in such an acrobatic
This is
manner,
not simply
dancing
poetic
to the beat of
language.
drums.
It is the
gongs,
physical
and
effect
cymbals.
of the waves themselves.
Occasionally, they pause to munch
As
upon the
one
fresh
passes
greens
through a
hung
region,
from various doorways
it alters
en
the
route.
geometry of distances,
Their mouths
in a
chomp at the
repeating
vegetables,
rhythmic pattern.
leaving a trail of leaves on the ground.
One direction
meant to
becomes
symbolize
slightly
the
longer,
spreading of good luck,
while a
and
perpendicular
fortune around the
direction
town.
becomes slightly shorter.
As before, there are
Then
differences
the pattern
in costume
flips.
and practice from region
Everything
to
in
region.
that region is affected together,
But generally,
including
these
rulers,
dances will take
mirrors,
place over the
and
first
space
few days
between
of the
them.
new year.
That
Like
is
many
why
of
the
the other
effect is
practices
so
at
hard
this
to
time,
detect. There are numerous myths
cannot shield
associated
yourself
with the
from
use
it,
of lions,
and you cannot compare against
One
a
particularly
perfectly
fixed
charming
object,
story tells of
because
the
the
evil
wave
beast
changes
Neon,
the whole
who
region.
threatened the safety of a village
The only way
until the
is
people
to measure
enlisted
relative
lions
changes
to scare
with
him away.
extraordinary
The following
precision.
year,
Without any
Interferometers
to help this by splitting laser
the villagers
light,
dressed
sending
up
it down
and
long
pretended
arms
to
and
be
comparing
lions,
how the light recombines.
successfully scaring away the beast.
A passing wave
and doing
shifts
so
the timing
every
just enough
year
to
after.
produce a detectable pattern.
These dances are a
When you
modern
hear that a black
reenactment
hole
of this
merger
tale,
was observed,
and the victory
this is what it
of
means.
good over evil.
Humanity measured space-time
The day
itself
after New
flexing,
Year's Day
then
is
traced
often
that
referred
flex
to as
back
the
to a
year's
distant
beginning.
collision,
Scientists
and marks the start
first
of a new
detected
cycle
gravitational
with
waves
its
in
own
2015.
associated zodiac animal.
For decades,
These
gravitational
are the 12
waves
animals
were
of
a
the Chinese
beautiful
zodiac,
prediction,
and
they
a
repeat
stubborn
in
experimental
12-year
challenge.
cycles. Then
order
a
of
signal
these
arrived
animals
that
once
was
again
too clean
is
to
rooted in
ignore.
myth, and the story
In
of
September
the
of
great race.
2015,
As
the
the tale
LIGO
goes,
detectors recorded
the Jade
a brief
Emperor,
pattern
ruler
that matched
of the
the
heavens,
expected shape
wanted
of
to
two
devise a
black
way
holes
to measure
spiraling
time.
together
To
and
do
merging.
so, he held a race amongst
The announcement
all animals
came months
on Earth,
later after careful
declaring
checks
that
because
the
a
first
discovery
12
that
across
large
the finish
has to
line
survive
would earn a
every
spot in the
possible
Chinese
doubt.
zodiac.
This was
The
not
rat was the
a
first to
vague
cross,
hint.
followed by the ox,
The
tiger,
signal showed a clear
rabbit,
rise in frequency
dragon,
and strength,
and snake.
followed by a sharp end.
Next, the horse,
exactly like the last
goat,
moments of a merger,
monkey,
and the
rooster,
settling of the remnant,
and dog.
It
And
also
then
came
lastly,
from far beyond
the
our
pig.
galaxy.
It's a charming
which means
story
the waves
revealing
traveled
the
for an
character
immense
traits
span of
each
time
animal.
before reaching Earth.
The rat, for example,
The
is
detection
carried across
opened
the
a new
river
kind
by
of
the
astronomy.
kindly ox.
Telescopes
See
only
light.
to cunningly
These
leap over the
instruments
creature's
listen
head
to the
at the
motion
finish
of
line,
mass to
even
take
when there
first
is no
place.
light at all.
Whilst
and
the dog,
changes
on the
what
other hand,
parts of the universe
takes 11th
are
place
available to us,
because he spends so long frolicking
That detection
happily
confirmed
confirmed
the
the major prediction of general
Children
relativity.
born in the year of a particular animal
General
are believed
relativity
to share
does
its
more than
character
explain
traits.
why planets orbit.
A child
and why
born in
clocks
the year
tick
of the
differently
rat,
in
for
gravity.
example, may be
It
intelligent
predicts
and
that
cunning,
accelerating masses
just
can
as one
send out
born in the year of
ripples
the
in
dog
space-time.
would likely be playful
For years,
and easygoing.
the theory passed every test in
Children
the solar
born
system.
in 2026,
But black
for
hole
example,
mergers probe
the
a
year
far
of the
more
horse,
extreme regime.
are thought to be energetic.
The first
and
gravitational
independent,
wave signal
though
matched
also
the relativity
impatient at
prediction
times.
not only in broad shade,
Furthermore,
but in
there are
detailed
different
timing.
qualities of each of
The
these
in-spiral
animals
phase
linked to
followed
the
the
5
expected
elements
pattern.
of metal,
The merger
wood,
produced a peak
earth,
consistent with strong
fire,
field
and
gravity.
water.
The ring
Again,
down
this
matched
alters
the
the
idea
strengths
that a new
and
black hole
weaknesses
should settle into a
ascribed to a
stable
person
state
born
with a
in a
specific
particular
vibration
year.
signature.
A water tiger, for instance,
This matters
is
because
thought
it
to be
tests
a little
gravity
wiser
where
than
alternative
a fire
theories might
tiger,
diverge.
who is more
It
likely to
also
be
turns
powerful
black holes
and
into
influential.
laboratories.
You
At
cannot
Chinese
build
New
a
Year,
black hole
it's
merger
common
in
to
a
see
lab,
images of the
but the
appropriate
universe
animal
builds
amongst
them for
posters
you
and decorations
and sends the data
After
to
all,
Earth
the
through
festival
spacetime
is a celebration
itself.
of that animal, as well as
That
the coming year
is a
itself.
remarkable scientific
Some
gift.
animals, such as the
And it
dragon,
places general
are thought of
relativity
as
under
particularly
the
lucky,
brightest spotlight
and there's often an
available.
increase in birth rates during
Gravitational
these years,
wave signals
as people hope to add a
reveal
lucky
the
dragon
masses
baby
of
to the
merging
household.
black holes. A waveform
Just as
is
believers
not
of
just a
Western
detection.
astrology might look
It is a
towards their
fingerprint.
horoscopes, some
The
will
rate
study
at which
the
the
zodiac
chirk
or visit
climbs
fortune tellers
depends on the
hoping to
masses.
grasp a sense of
Heavier
what the
pairs
future year
spiral
holds.
together differently from
Each
lighter
year
pairs,
is thought to carry
and
the
the final
particular
merger
energy
peak
of its
shifts
assigned
too.
animal, something
By
that
matching
influences
observed
events
signals
across
to
the
a
globe.
library of predicted waveforms.
The year of the rat, who took
Scientists
first
can
place in the great
estimate the
race,
masses
is
of the
linked
two
to the
original
theme of
black
new
holes.
beginnings.
As
And
such,
the mass
few
of the
are
final
surprised
coup
when big
remnant.
global changes
The
coincide
same
with the
signal
year of
also
the rat.
carries hints about spin.
On an individual level,
because spin
many people will look
changes
to
the
astrology
dynamics of the
to learn
orbit
how their own
and the
zodiac
moment of
element
merger
might fare in the coming
What
year.
makes this so powerful
This is taken
is
into
that it
account
works
when
even
making
when the
important
system is
life
completely
decisions.
dark.
From moving home
There may be
and
no
marriage
hot
to
gas
buying and
and no
selling on
light
the stock
to measure.
market.
Yet the masses can still be
Each
inferred
element
from the
is
space-time
associated
pattern
with
alone.
specific numbers.
This is
colours,
one reason
flowers,
gravitational
and
wave
even
astronomy
directions
expanded
that are
so
thought
quickly.
to be lucky.
It can weigh objects
A rabbit
that
for
are otherwise
example, should
invisible.
focus on maintaining
In a sense,
their health.
it turns
and
mass
might find
into
luck
sound,
in love and
it lets us do
harmony
astronomy
in this year
with the
of
structure
horse.
of time itself
Why
as
needing
the messenger.
patience for possible career
Some
delays.
detected black holes were heavier than
Perhaps
expected.
they dress in their lucky
Before
colours
gravitational
of
wave
green
detections,
and yellow.
most known stellar
Or they
mass
might
black
place
holes
vases
came
of
from
bamboo
X-ray
and
binaries.
fishermen around around
and they tended to cluster in a narrower mass
Alongside
range.
these astrological
Then the
beliefs,
merger signals
the New
arrived,
Year
and
celebrations
some components
are linked
looked
to folklore.
surprisingly heavy.
Whilst the days that
That
follow
forced
New
scientists
Year's Day
to revisit
involve
ideas
more
about
time
how
well
massive
spent
stars
amongst
live
friends
and
and
die.
family.
There are
A key
also
issue
specific
is mass
activities
loss.
which celebrate
Stars
certain
can shed
gods.
enormous amounts of material.
The
through
fifth
stellar
day, for
winds,
example,
and the strength
is
of
known
those
as
winds
the god
depends
of
on
wealth's
factors like
birthday.
chemical composition, and many families will attend
If a star
special
loses
ceremony
less mass
at their
before
local
collapse,
temple. It can leave a heavier
Afterwards,
remnant. At
another
home,
issue is
firecrackers
hair
will be lit
instability,
in the hopes
a
of
process
catching the
that
god's
can disrupt
attention,
very massive
and ensuring
stars
wealth and
and
prosperity
prevent certain
is
black
brought
hole
into the
masses
home.
from forming in the simplest models.
In some regions of northern
When detectors
China,
began finding
those
objects
treasure-like
near these
golden
boundaries,
dumplings
it
will be
raised
eaten
new
once
questions.
again. Whilst
Were these
elsewhere,
black holes
a selection
formed
of
through
fruits,
unusual
flowers,
stellar evolution,
teas, and candles
through repeated
are laid
mergers and
out as
clusters,
an offering to the
or
god,
through something else entirely?
people generally
The
return
surprise
to
was
work
not just
on the
a
eighth
bigger
day,
number,
marking the
it was a
return with a
clue that
corporate
nature
dinner
is using
in
more
which
than one
employees are
pathway
thanked
for
for
the
the
past
past black
year's
holes.
efforts.
Then,
These
on the
discoveries
ninth day of
changed
the
ideas
festival,
about how
it's
black
the
holes
birthday
form.
of the Jade Emperor.
Once you have
the
a new
ruler
way
of
to
heaven.
observe the universe,
This
you also
provides
get
reason
new ways
for more
to be
family
wrong,
gatherings,
which is
and
healthy for
delicious
science.
food.
For some,
Gravitational
it is a
wave
time to
catalogs
visit the
started to
temple
show
once more,
patterns, including
where
mass
incense is
ranges,
lit
spin
and
distributions,
prayers are offered.
and hints about how often mergers
Extra
happen.
special offerings are made.
Those patterns
including
feed
fresh
back into
fruits
models of
and
stellar
candies
evolution
in
and
every
star
color.
formation.
For example, in the southern
many
regions
merging
especially,
black holes come
people
from
craft
low
beautiful
metallicity
sculptures
environments
from
colored sugarcane,
that points to
and arrange
specific
them on
eras
tables
of cosmic
within the
history
temple.
and specific types
The
of
word for
galaxies.
sugarcane sounds
If
very
many
similar
mergers
to
come from dense
thank you
clusters
in certain
that
southern
points to a
dialects,
different story, which makes
where
it an
repeated
especially
interactions
meaningful
and
gift for
partner
the Jade
swapping
Emperor.
are important.
On the
Spin
15th
measurements
day
can
of
also
the
hint
Chinese
at
New
origin.
Year,
The celebration's
spins
end in
suggest
truly
long vivid
spectacular
binary
fashion.
evolution,
With the famous
random spin
lantern
orientations
festival.
suggest dynamical
This
pairing.
night always
None of these
coincides
clues
with the
is
full
perfect
moon
on its own,
and carries a
but
history
together they
stretching
reshape
back
the field.
thousands of years.
Black holes stopped being
There are
rare
several
curiosities
theories about how
and
the
became a
lantern
population
festival
that can
began.
be studied statistically.
Some believe it originated
That shift
during
is
the Qin
huge.
dynasty.
It turns
when an
questions
emperor
like,
made an appeal
"Can
to the
this
deity
happen?"
who
into
governed
questions
human
like,
destiny,
how often does it
hoping
happen,
for favorable
and
weather
why that
and
way?
good fortune.
Black holes can
Others
also
suggest
merge with
it
neutron
honors a
stars.
Taoist god who
This
descends
pairing
to
is a
Earth
collision
on the
between
15th
two
day
extreme
of the
kinds
first
of
month
remnants.
to observe
A
human
neutron
behavior
star is matter
and grant
packed
blessings
so tightly
or
that
misfortune
atoms are crushed
accordingly.
and the star becomes
Worshippers
a
hope to
city-sized
please
sphere.
him with the
When a
spectacle
black
of
hole
glowing
is in the
lanterns.
mix, the outcome
Yet
depends
others
on
support a
mass
legend
and spin
that explains
and
the
also on
festival
how
as an
compact
effort to
the neutron
trick
star
a god,
is.
rather than
In
worship
some
him.
cases, the black hole
After
simply
villagers
swallows
hunted
the
and
neutron
killed
star
a beautiful
with little
crane
debris left
favored
outside.
by the divine Jade Emperor.
In other cases, the
he
neutron
decided
star
to punish
can be
them
torn
by
apart
burning their
before the
village
final
to the
plunge,
ground,
which
on
spreads
the
material
15th
into
day
space.
of the new year.
That difference
A wise
matters
man
because
suggested
debris
a
can
plan.
power light signals that
On the
accompany
14th,
the gravitational
15th,
waves.
and 16th days
These
of the
mergers
year,
also help scientists
every family
study
in the
neutron
village
star
should hang red
equation of
lanterns
state,
outside
which
their
is the
homes,
relationship between
set up
pressure
bonfires
and
on the
density
streets,
inside that
and
ultra-dense
explode
matter.
firecrackers,
The waveform
so that the
can
village
carry
would
information
appear to
about
be in
tidal
flames,
effects and the presence
and indeed,
or absence of
when
bright
the troops
aftermath
sent by the
can narrow
Jade
down
Emperor
what
to
happened.
set fire to the village
It is
arrived
like
on
watching
the
gravity
15th
and
day.
nuclear matter
They
collide
thought
in
the
the same
village was
story.
already ablaze,
Both leave
and
clues.
returned to report to
These
their
mergers
master.
can produce
From that
bursts
day
of
on,
light and heavy
people
elements.
celebrate this escape
When
by
a neutron
carrying
star is
lanterns on the
disrupted,
streets,
some of
and
its
exploding
material can be
firecrackers.
flung outward at high speed.
Today, the
That
festival has
ejected
become
matter
more symbolic
is rich
in
in
nature,
neutrons, with
and
lanterns
it can
thought to
rapidly
illuminate
build
the
heavy
year ahead.
atomic nuclei.
Equally,
Through
they provide a
AR
physical means of
process.
letting go of the past.
The fresh elements
when they are released
then
into
heat
the,
debris
air or water.
as radioactive isotopes
Over the years,
decay,
London festivals
producing
have
a
become
glow
more elaborate
called a
and extravagant,
kilonova.
attracting interest from people
The
all
light
around
changes
the world.
color over days,
From Las
as
Vegas
different
to New
elements
Zealand,
dominate,
crowds of people
and as the
flock to see
material
the light
expands
shows,
and cools.
including huge paper figurines.
This is one of
and
the
monuments.
most satisfying
And
kinds
in
of
some
cosmic
places,
evidence,
dramatic ice
because it
sculptures,
connects a
their dazzling
violent
colors
astronomical
contrasting
event
against the
to
darkness.
the chemical story of the periodic table.
And with that, let's return
it
to the
also
festival
gives
at hand.
astronomers two messengers
All around
at
you are
once.
lanterns of every shape and size, in many
Gravitational
different
waves
colors.
reveal the timing
Some are
and the
adorned with
masses
puzzles
involved.
and riddles, whilst
Light
others
reveals
carry
the
messages of
surrounding
hope
environment
and prosperity.
and the material
material
And
consequences.
beside them too are paper decorations
When both
of every
are
kind.
observed, flowers
the event
and
becomes
fish,
a complete story
birds and buildings,
rather than a single
lit
signal.
by an inner bulb.
It also helps trace the
They are a
origins of
burst
heavy
color and
elements
beauty
in the universe.
shining out across the landscape.
That question matters
Beneath
to us
the lights,
directly.
the faces of many
Because the
happy
atoms in
families are
jewelry
brought into
and
view.
electronics
Crowds
carry
of
an
Uruk children
astrophysical
and
history.
their parents are revealed for just a moment,
Elements
before
such
once
as
again
gold
returning
may
to
be
the
created
darkness.
in these collisions.
Many of the
Gold
children
serves as
carry
a
their own
helpful
homemade
example
paper
because
lanterns,
it is familiar
planning to
and
release
rare.
them later.
In the R
Viewed
process,
from a distance in the
atomic
evening,
nuclei
it
rapidly
looks
capture
almost
neutrons,
as though the lanterns
forming
are
heavier
moving
and
independently,
heavier elements before
like
they have time to
stars
decay.
floating across the land.
The debris expelled from
Following the
neutron-rich
path of these
mergers
glittering
provides
lights,
a natural
you pass
setting
more
for that
paper
swift
sculptures,
buildup. Each one more
Over
dazzling
time,
and
unstable
unique than the
nuclei
last.
transform into more stable
There's a giant
forms,
yellow
and the
dragon
outcome can
more than
include
10
elements
feet
in the
long
gold
in
group
size.
and beyond.
Its body displaying
This does
an
not mean
intricate
that every
blanket
piece of
red
gold on
scales
Earth
upon yellow
originated from a
ones.
single event.
Bright red
Nor does it
spines
mean that
decorate
black
the top
hole
of
and
its tail,
neutron star
whilst its
mergers are the
huge
only
face is
source.
framed with green
It
whiskers
does suggest
and horns.
that at least some of the gold
And
in the
within its
universe
open mouth,
likely began
a
as
giant
newly
red
formed
tongue
nuclei
is visible.
within expanding
Upon it,
merger debris
a bright
long
yellow
before the
light
sun
bulb.
was born.
The handheld
The next
lanterns
time you see gold,
swirl around
it is
to the
worth
dragon's
remembering
base,
that it may have started
pausing
as
every
hot,
so often
dense
as
matter
people
launched
stop
into
and
space
stare.
by a collision so intense
The gentle
that it
pitter-patter
shook
of
space-time.
footsteps fills the air.
That is an origin story
Occasionally punctuated
with real
by
physics
gasps,
behind it,
giggles,
and it ties
and
everyday
various
objects
expressions of
to the
wonder
most
and
extreme
delight.
events we can observe.
Not far from the dragon,
A star
a
that
narrow
wanders
street
too
open
close
out,
can be
forming
torn
a
apart.
large town square.
This is where
a
the word
market might be held in
spaghettification
daylight.
comes from. Here
And
stands
it
a
is
giant
as dramatic
marquee
as it
tent.
sounds. Its entire
The side of
frame
the star
glowing
closer to the
purple
black
and
hole
white
feels
fairy
a stronger
lights.
pull than the far side.
And inside, at its
When
center,
that difference becomes
a
large
colossal
enough,
lotus
the
flower
star is
looks down
stretched
upon
into
those
a long
inside.
stream.
Its giant
The
pink
star's
petals
own gravity
opening
cannot
and
hold it
closing,
together,
as if
and
it
the
were a
star
real
is shredded
breathing
into
flower.
a mixture of hot gas and
Around
debris.
it, long strands of fairy
Some of
lights
that
drip
material
vertically
is
from
flung
the ceiling,
outward,
and some
illuminating
falls
the
inward
food stores
and
below,
forms a temporary
and the many happy
accretion
customers
flow. Eating their goods.
The system can flare to
Rice balls are a
extraordinary
favorite
brightness
here,
for
and
weeks
one
or
traditionally
months,
enjoyed at the
even though
Lantern
the black
Festival.
hole itself remains
Sweet
dark.
and sticky treat.
They're
These
a
events
combination
are also
of
time
glutinous
dependent,
rice flour,
which makes them
black
exciting to
sesame
observe.
seeds, sugar,
You can catch a galaxy
peanuts,
that looked ordinary
butter.
last year, and then
repeatedly
suddenly,
coated
its center
in the flour
is
before
blazing
being cooked in
because a
boiling
star
water.
met the wrong orbit.
They have the appearance of
It
large
is a reminder
white
that galactic
snowballs
cores
until
are not
they are bitten
static.
into. They are active gravitational
That is when the
environment
sweet and
where a
nutty
single
insides
close pass
ooze out
can
from
destroy
the
a
center
star
and light up a
as
galaxy's
well as being
heart.
delicious. The round
This event
shape
is
of
called
the balls
a tidal
is thought to
disruption
symbolize togetherness
The name
and
is
family
clinical,
reunion.
but the reality is violent.
To the right of the
and
marquee,
scientifically rich,
the path continues towards the
tidal
waterfront,
forces are the same
becoming
basic
ever more
idea
dazzling
that
and
raises
dreamlike
ocean
as it
tides on
goes.
Earth. On either
Except
side of the
here,
path, the gradient
rows
is
of
so
trees
steep
display
that
small
it can rip a
cylindrical
star
lanterns hanging from their branches.
After disruption, the
and
debris
in some
follows
giant
a range of
paper
orbits.
pandas have been
Some
expertly
escapes,
positioned,
but a
appearing
significant
in a
fraction
range
can
of
return
lifelike
toward the
if
black
comical
hole over
positions.
time. Some
That
sit
fallback
at the
rate
tree's
often
base,
declines in a
chewing
distinctive
lazily
way,
on bamboo,
which gives
as
astronomers
they look out
a kind
at
of
the
clock
passers-by.
to study.
Others
The
are climbing
returning
midway
midway
up
can
the
form
trunk,
a disc,
or further
produce
still,
strong
along the
ultraviolet
trees and
upper
X-ray
branches.
emission.
One particular
and sometimes
panda
launch
is almost
outflows.
entirely hidden. But
Observers
for those
look for a
brightly
sudden
lit
brightening
eyes
in a
peeping out
galaxy's
from within the
nucleus,
tree's dense
and then
canopy.
track how the spectrum and brightness
Down the
evolve.
center of the path, a
Because
series
the
of
event begins
freestanding
abruptly,
arches beam
It
with
is like a
bright white
natural
lights.
experiment with a clear
With
start
lanterns
time.
still in hand,
It lets scientists
groups of families,
study how an
friends,
accretion flow
and
turns
couples
on, stroll
how
beneath
jets might
these
form,
heavenly arches,
and how a black
one
hole
after
reacts
another.
when it is suddenly fed.
Eventually, they arrive at the
It
river's
also
edge,
provides
with
a
a
rare
light of the
chance to
silver
throw
moon
black holes
illuminates
into
a
galaxies
vast expanse
that were
of water.
otherwise quiet. Moonlight
Because
dances
disruption can
across its
reveal a
surface,
hidden central
flickering
mass.
rhythmically.
Tidal
with the ebb and
disruption
flow
events
of the
can be
water.
seen across vast
Upon the
distances.
water, there are countless
They are
large
bright
ferry
enough
boats
that modern
Their
sky
seats filled
surveys
with
can
locals
find them
and
by
tourists
scanning large
looking
areas
to enjoy the
repeatedly
festival on the river.
and flagging sudden
They
changes.
sail out into the water,
This is
gliding
time
between
domain
giant
astronomy,
floating sculptures
where
of
the key
swans
information
and
is not
peacocks,
just what is
ships
in the sky,
and trees.
but what is changing.
There's even a parade of the
When
12
a candidate
zodiac
flare
animals,
is found,
each
follow-up
raised upon an
telescopes
individual
can measure its
floating
spectrum,
pillar
its
high
color
above the
evolution,
water. This
and
causes
its
much
X-ray behavior.
excitement amongst the children.
The combination
who
helps
gawk
distinguish
and point
disruption
at the
events
sight of
from
their own
supernova
zodiac animals
and other
brought
transients.
to life in such
Some are
marvelous
found
fashion.
in optical light.
light.
Others
Music
show up
plays in the
strongly
distance,
in ultraviolet
a
or
melodic
X-rays.
tune echoing across
A
the
few
harbor
show evidence
above
of
the
jets
sound of waves
aimed toward
lapping
us,
against the boat,
which makes them even brighter
the air
through
is fresh
relativistic
and
boosting.
cool,
because
though
these
it still
events
carries
can be
the smell
detected
of
far
those
away.
sweet and sticky
They help
rice
scientists
balls.
build a census of black
Eventually,
holes in many
each
galaxies,
of the boats pauses in
including
position,
ones that do not
signaling
host
the time
luminous
when the
active
lanterns
nuclei most
are
of the time.
released. One
They
by
also
one,
let us watch the
adults and
process of
children
stellar
lean
destruction
against the ferry's
unfold,
railings,
rather than inferring
carefully
it from a
dropping their
static
lanterns
snapshot.
into the water below.
That is powerful,
As they
because
do
it turns
so,
a theoretical
some
picture
whisper
into a
prayers
sequence you
and
can
hopes
actually
for a prosperous
observe
new year,
and compare across many
then
cases.
they continue to gaze as their
Black
lanterns
holes
float
can remain
away
quiet
upon the waves,
for long periods.
surrounded by hundreds,
A black hole does
if
not need to be
thousands of
actively
others.
feeding to exist.
It's a
And many
star-filled sky
spend most of their
painted
lives in a
across the
low
water.
activity state.
Soon after,
The key factor
the New
is
Year celebrations
supply.
end.
If there
as
is
they
little
began
nearby
with
gas,
fireworks of
or if
every
gas has
shape
too
and
much
shade
angular momentum
lighting
to
up the
fall
skies.
inward efficiently,
Only
the black hole may
not
have very
exactly
little
the
to
same,
accrete.
because now,
Even in galactic
far
centers,
beneath the
gas can be
fireworks,
locked up in
the
stars
lights of
or kept
countless
hot
paper
and
lanterns
diffuse,
drift
which reduces
upwards
feeding.
as well.
The result is a
Released on
central
land,
black hole
they
that is
float
gravitationally
slowly into the
important,
sky,
but
carrying with them
electromagnetically
people's
faint.
hopes
This quiet
and dreams
phase
for the
matters
future,
because it is likely the
it's a
common
truly
state
breathtaking
rather than
sight,
the exception.
a magical and
It
meaningful
also affects
beginning
how we
to
interpret the
new year
universe.
ahead. If you
An
only looked
entire
for
sky
bright,
filled
active
with
black
hope,
holes,
you
love,
would miss most of
and
them
goodness,
and get a distorted picture of black hole demographics. Quiet black holes are like dormant volcanoes. They can still shape the landscape through gravity, and they can still wake up if conditions change. But for long stretches, they may barely announce themselves in light. Quiet black holes are difficult to find. When a black hole is not surrounded by bright, hot gas, it does not advertise its presence. Astronomers then have to rely on subtler techniques. One method is to track the motion of a visible companion in a binary system, looking for an unseen mass that is too heavy to be a normal star. Another is gravitational microlensing, where a passing compact object briefly magnifies the light of a background star and can also shift the star's apparent position. Astrometric surveys can search for tiny wobbles in a star's motion that suggest an invisible partner. Each approach has challenges. Microlensing events are rare and unpredictable. Orbital studies require time and precision. Crowded regions make measurements harder. Yet progress is steady, and the reward is significant. Finding quiet black holes helps map how common they are, how massive they tend to be, and how they are distributed through the galaxy. It also checks our models of stellar death, because every quiet black hole is evidence of a past collapse that may not have produced a dramatic, visible supernova. Some black holes may drift alone through galaxies. Not every black hole stays neatly in a binary or anchored in a galactic nucleus. When massive stars explode, the explosion can be asymmetric, and that can kick the remnant. If the kick is strong enough, a newly formed black hole can be launched onto a wandering path through the galaxy. Over time, it may pass through interstellar clouds, or it may move through relatively empty regions with little to accrete. That makes it almost invisible. Still, its gravity is real. In principle, such a drifter could reveal itself by micro-lensing a background star, or by accreting a small amount of gas and producing faint X-rays. The idea also changes how we think about the galaxy's population of compact objects. There may be many black holes that are not in bright systems, not in pairs, and not in famous places. They may be moving through the same disk of stars that contains our solar system, separated by vast distances, and detectable only through careful surveys that look for the smallest gravitational signatures. These are sometimes called rogue black holes. The word rogue is not a scientific classification, but it captures the basic idea. A black hole that is not obviously tied to a star system or a galactic center is hard to spot and easy to underestimate.
Sessions often focus on microlensing events that last for weeks or months, because heavier lenses tend to produce longer signals. If a lenting event also shows a measurable shift in the background star's apparent position, scientists can better infer the lens's mass and decide whether it could be a Tessel-Poo black hole. Space missions that map stellar positions precisely, like GIA, make this kind of hunt more realistic. A confirmed rogue black hole would be a striking object. It would be nearby by cosmic standards, massive, dark, and moving with no bright disk to warn you that it exists. It would also add an important piece to the census of black holes in the Milky Way and help answer a simple question with big consequences. How many invisible heavy objects share our galaxy with us? A black hole does not actively pull objects toward it. Gravity is not a hunting force that reaches out and grabs.
It is the shape of spacetime, and objects follow that shape, unless something changes their motion. Far from a black hole, a spacecraft can orbit just as it would around any object with the same mass. If it has enough sideways speed, it keeps missing the center and continues circling. To fall in, it must lose orbital energy, or lose the sideways motion that keeps it in a stable path. That is why black holes can exist in busy regions without immediately swallowing everything nearby. Stars can orbit a central black hole for millions of years. Gas clouds can pass by and continue on their way. The danger rises when something wanders close enough that gravity changes sharply across short distances, or when friction and collisions remove the motion that was keeping it safe. Objects must lose energy to fall inward. Falling into a black hole usually looks less like a straight drop and more like a long spiral.
Something in orbit has energy and angular momentum, which act like a kind of built-in resistance to plunging. To move inward, that energy must be carried away gas. The main mechanism is friction and turbulence. Colliding streams heat up and radiate light, and that radiation leaves the system, taking energy with it. Magnetic interactions can also move angular momentum outward, allowing inner material to drift down. The stars in crowded environments, repeated gravitational encounters can shuffle energy between objects, pushing some inward while flinging others outward. In very tight black hole pairs, gravitational waves do the same job on a grand scale, stealing orbital energy until the final plunge becomes unavoidable. The key idea is simple and powerful. In space, falling often depends on losing energy rather than gaining it. Stable orbits can exist outside a black hole's event horizon.
A black hole does not immediately erase the normal rules of orbital motion as you approach it. There are still paths along which an object can circle for long periods, and those paths can remain highly predictable. This is why disks are able to form and endure, and why stars can trace repeated loops around an unseen center. The key difference is that near a black hole, the landscape of possible orbits shifts. Some paths become unstable, meaning that even a slight disturbance can transform a secure orbit into a plunge inward. That creates a natural inner boundary for many disks and helps determine the radiation we detect from hot gas. For spinning black holes, the details depend on whether the orbit moves with the spin or against it. In that sense, a black hole is not merely a trap. It is also a gravitational organizer, with a structured map of permitted motions outside its boundary. Inside the event horizon, all paths lead inward.
The strangest part is that this is not about being too weak to escape.
it is about what forward means. In relativity, the future is a set of possible directions you can move through space-time. Outside the horizon, some of those future directions point outward, so escape remains possible. At the horizon, the geometry tips so steeply that every future directed path aims toward the center. Even a beam of light that tries to go outward still moves inward in terms of the deeper geometry. This is why the horizon is such a clean boundary. It is not a physical surface that blocks you. It is a boundary in the space of possible futures. That idea can sound abstract, yet it has a clear consequence. Once you cross, turning around is not like turning a vehicle. It is like trying to drive into yesterday. The option simply is not available. The singularity lies at the center of a black hole. In the simplest mathematical descriptions, the collapse does not stop at a dense core. It continues until the curvature of space-time becomes infinite, and density becomes infinite too. That predicted endpoint is called the singularity. It is not something anyone thinks of as a normal object sitting in space. It is more like a warning sign inside the equations where the usual concepts of distance and time stop behaving in familiar ways. The singularity is hidden by the event horizon, which is why it does not immediately contradict what we observe. Still, the idea matters because it tells us where our best theory is being pushed past its safe range. In everyday life, infinities usually mean a model has been taken beyond where it applies. The singularity may be a real feature of nature, or it may be a signal that new physics must appear before the collapse reaches that extreme. Current physics cannot fully describe the singularity. General relativity is brilliant at describing gravity as geometry, but it treats space-time as smooth and continuous. Quantum physics, on the other hand, tells us that fields have fluctuations, and that small scales can behave in surprising ways. A singularity sits exactly where those two frameworks collide. Near such extreme curvature, quantum effect should matter. Yet, we do not have a complete theory that unifies quantum rules with gravitational geometry. That is why predictions become unreliable. It is not that the equations give no answer. They give answers that include infinities and contradictions, which is usually the sign that a deeper description is needed. Many researchers expect that whatever replaces the singularity will involve a new picture of space-time at tiny scales, and possibly a limit to how tightly matter and energy can be compressed. Until that theory is complete, the singularity remains one of the clearest places where physics admits it has reached the edge of its own map. Singularities mark where known theories break down. In physics, a singularity is often less like a destination and more like a red flag. When a calculation produces infinite density or infinite curvature, it usually means the model is being asked to describe conditions it was never built for. That is exactly what happened here. General relativity was designed to describe smooth space-time and large-scale gravity. It works beautifully for planets, stars, and even the overall evolution of the universe. At a singularity, the smooth picture collapses, and the theory can no longer reliably tell you what happens next. This is not unique to black holes. Similar singularities appear when you run simple models backward toward the very early universe. In both cases, the infinities are telling the same story. Our current tools are incomplete at the most extreme densities. That is why singularities are scientifically valuable.
They are not just weird results. They are signposts that point directly toward the missing pieces of our understanding.
Quantum gravity may change how singularities behave. Many approaches try to build a theory where space-time itself has quantum properties. In some ideas, space is made of tiny units, so there is a smallest meaningful scale. In others, geometry emerges from deeper ingredients, like information and fields that behave differently at high energy. If space-time has a built-in graininess or a new set of quantum rules, then the runaway collapse predicted by classical relativity might be halted or redirected. Instead of an infinite point, the core might reach an extreme but finite density. Some models suggest a bounce where collapse transitions into expansion under quantum pressure-like effects. Others suggest that what we call the singularity is replaced by a region where familiar notions of time and distance become fuzzy but not infinite. These ideas are still being tested, mostly through mathematics and consistency checks, because direct experiments are hard. Still, black holes remain one of the best places to search for quantum gravity's fingerprints, because they push nature into the strongest curvature we can observe. Some theories suggest singularities may not truly exist. There are proposals where a collapsing object never forms the classical interior predicted by simple equations. Instead, exotic states of matter or new gravitational behavior could create an ultra-compact object that looks almost like a black hole from outside. Some ideas involve a shell or a vacuum-like interior that resists complete collapse. Others propose that quantum effects could create a long-lived remnant, so the endpoint is compact and extreme, but not mathematically infinite. These alternatives are difficult to test, because from far away, many would mimic a true black hole very closely. The differences might appear in subtle ways, such as how the object rings after a merger, or how matter behaves at the innermost edge of an accretion flow. That is why this question stays alive. The singularity is hidden, so nature gives us only indirect clues. Yet the stakes are enormous. If singularities do not exist, then the universe avoids true infinities, and that would reshape how we think about what reality allows at its most extreme limits. These questions remain open and actively studied. Black holes sit at the intersection of observation and theory in a rare way. Telescopes can track stars orbiting invisible masses. Radio arrays can map the glow of gas near an event horizon. And gravitational wave detectors can dare record the aftershocks of mergers. At the same time, theorists are wrestling with deep questions about information, quantum behavior, and what spacetime is made of. Progress often comes from connecting these worlds. A new observation can eliminate a class of models. A new mathematical insight can suggest what signature to look for in the sky. Even the absence of a signal can be revealing, because it constrains how extreme certain effects can be. This is why black hole research moves so quickly. It is not a single problem with one answer. It is a network of mysteries that reinforce each other, from the largest scales of galaxies to the smallest scales, where quantum gravity might live. Each new dataset is a new chance to learn what the universe does when it is pushed to the edge. Wormholes are theoretical tunnels through spacetime. A wormhole is a proposed shortcut that connects two separate regions of spacetime through a kind of bridge. In equations, it can look like a throat that you could, in principle, pass through, emerging somewhere else without traveling the long way across ordinary space. The idea is captivating because it turns geometry into a route. Distance becomes negotiable. Yet the same equations that allow wormholes
also raise difficult questions about stability.
Many wormhole solutions appear to pinch off before anything could cross. Others require unusual energy conditions that do not resemble ordinary matter. Even so, wormholes remain useful because they test our understanding of relativity and the structure of spacetime. They also appear in science fiction for good reason. If anything like a traversable wormhole existed, it would change what travel means, and it would force a new conversation about causality and time. For now, wormholes remain a mathematical possibility, not an observed feature of the universe. Some wormhole solutions are mathematically related to black holes. One of the earliest connections appears in the geometry of a non-rotating black hole. If you extend the solution in a certain way, the mathematics can describe two regions of spacetime connected by a bridge. This is sometimes called an Einstein-Rosen bridge. The key detail is that in the simplest version, it is not a usable tunnel. It closes too quickly for anything to pass through. Still, the relationship matters because it shows how black holes and wormholes can be part of the same family of space-time structures in relativity. In modern theoretical physics, there are also ideas that link entanglement and geometry, suggesting deep connections between quantum links and wormhole-like descriptions. These are advanced concepts, but the headline is clear. Black holes are not just astrophysical objects. They are also gateways into understanding what space-time can do in the language of mathematics. Wormhole links keep appearing because black holes are where geometry becomes most flexible and most strange. No wormhole has ever been observed. If a traversable wormhole existed nearby, it might produce distinctive gravitational lensing patterns that differ from ordinary massive objects. It might create unusual multiple images of background stars or lensing that changes in a way that does not match a simple mass distribution. People have proposed searches for these signatures, and some surveys could, in principle, catch hints, but nothing has been confirmed. Part of the challenge is that many exotic objects can mimic each other from a distance. A wormhole, a black hole, and certain dense star clusters can all bend light in dramatic ways, and the differences can be subtle. There is also the problem of rarity. Even if wormholes are allowed by physics, the universe may not produce them often, or they may require conditions that never occur naturally. So at present, wormholes remain a compelling hypothesis rather than a part of established astronomy. That is not a failure. It is an invitation to refine predictions and to continue searching. Some of the greatest discoveries began as ideas that once seemed too strange to be real. Many wormholes would collapse too quickly to allow passage. The central challenge is stability. In many models, the throat of a wormhole resembles a tunnel formed by space-time curvature, and ordinary matter cannot keep it open. Gravity naturally causes the tunnel to pinch shut. To hold it open, certain solutions require forms of energy that behave in unusual ways, often described as having negative energy density. In everyday experience, energy density is positive. Negative energy is not something you can simply collect. Yet quantum theory permits certain limited effects in which energy can be lower than the surrounding vacuum state for brief moments and in tiny regions. The well-known Casimir effect is one example of vacuum behavior that hints at this unusual domain. Even if such phenomena exist, expanding them to sustain a macroscopic wormhole would be an enormous leap. That is why many traversable wormhole concepts remain speculative. They are not dismissed by mathematics alone, but they appear to require ingredients that nature may not supply in large, stable quantities.
White holes are theoretical opposites of black holes. If you reverse the direction of time in certain black hole solutions, the math can produce an object that nothing can enter while things can leave. That is the basic white hole concept. It is fascinating because it turns the usual story inside out. Instead of an event horizon that seals things in, you would have a horizon that prevents entry. The object would behave like a one-way outlet in spacetime. In theory, it could eject matter and light, and nothing could cross inward to stop it. This raises immediate questions about realism. In our universe, we see plenty of things falling inward under gravity, and we see horizons forming from collapse. We do not see objects that spontaneously spew matter in a way that cannot be traced to an explosion or a star.
Still, white holes remain useful as thought tools. They help clarify how time symmetry appears in equations and how the real universe chooses one direction of time through thermodynamics and entropy. A white hole would expel matter instead of absorbing it. The defining behavior would be a kind of cosmic refusal. Any attempt to send something in would fail because the horizon structure would not allow inward crossing. Yet outward crossing would be allowed. So the object could, in principle, eject particles and radiation into the surrounding space. The immediate puzzle is where that outgoing material comes from and why it would be released in the first place. In realistic astrophysics, we expect causal histories. We expect a source that can be followed backward to earlier states. A white hole challenges that expectation because it looks like matter emerging without an ordinary precursor that you can observe.
Some researchers have explored whether white hole-like behavior could appear in limited or transitional ways, such as in exotic models where collapse is replaced by a prior bounce. These remain speculative. What is certain is that the concept forces clear thinking about horizons and time. Black holes are natural outcomes of collapse. White holes are the time-reversed story, and the universe has not shown us clear evidence that it runs that story forward. No confirmed white holes have ever been found. Astronomers do see sudden bursts and energetic events, but they have conventional explanations. Supernova mark stellar death. Gamma ray bursts can come from collapsing stars or compact object mergers. Outbursts from galactic centers can come from changes in accretion. None of these require a white hole. For a white hole claimed to be convincing, it would need a signature that cannot be easily produced by known processes, and it would need consistent follow-up evidence.
That is a high bar, and so far it has not been met.
This does not mean the idea is useless. White holes are part of the broader effort to understand what the equations allow, and how the real universe selects certain solutions over others. Sometimes the value of a concept is in the questions it clarifies. Why do we see horizons form through collapse, but not horizons that force matter outward? What role does entropy play? What role does cosmic history play? The absence of evidence keeps the idea in the realm of speculation, but it also sharpens the contrast between mathematical possibility and physical reality. Black holes appear naturally in Einstein's equations. When Einstein wrote down general relativity, he created a new language for gravity. Almost immediately, researchers began exploring what the equations permit. One of the first exact solutions described the spacetime outside a simple spherical mass.
Taken seriously, that solution implied a boundary beyond which escape becomes impossible. At the time, this was not framed as a real object in the sky. It was a feature of the mathematics. Yet, the math was stubborn. It kept pointing to horizons as a natural outcome of strong enough compression. Later solutions extended the picture to include rotation, which is essential because real astrophysical objects spin. The remarkable thing is that black holes were not added as an extra idea. They fell out of the equations once gravity was described as curvature. In that sense, black holes are not exotic exceptions to relativity. They are among its most direct and unavoidable predictions, waiting for the universe to show whether it takes advantage of that possibility. Einstein himself doubted they existed in reality. This was not because the equations were wrong. It was because the physical interpretation was unsettling, and the idea of a true horizon felt too extreme.
Early discussions often treated the horizon as a mathematical artifact rather than a real boundary. There was also the question of formation. Could a real star collapse far enough to produce such a region? Or would some other effect intervene? Even within relativity, it took time for the community to clarify which features were coordinate issues and which were physical. As the decades passed, the picture sharpened. Relativity did not merely allow black holes. It suggested collapse could produce them under realistic conditions. Einstein's caution is worth remembering because it shows how science progresses. Even a revolutionary theory can produce predictions that feel too strange to accept at first. Doubt is not failure. Doubt is the pressure that forces ideas to earn their place through clearer mathematics and eventually evidence from the sky. Evidence slowly accumulated over the 20th century. The case did not turn on a single dramatic observation. It built step by step. Astronomers discovered extremely bright galactic cores that suggested compact power sources. X-ray astronomy revealed systems where invisible objects pulled gas from companions and heated it to extreme temperatures. Improved telescopes made it possible to track stellar motions near galactic centers, revealing enormous masses packed into tiny regions. Theoretical work also matured, showing how collapse could proceed and how accretion could generate the observed radiation. By the late 20th century, black holes were no longer just mathematical curiosities. They were the best explanation for multiple classes of phenomena across different wavelengths. The shift was cultural as well as scientific. The term black hole entered public language, and the object moved from fringe speculation into the core of astrophysics. What began as an uncomfortable implication of equations became a central tool for understanding galaxies, high-energy light, and the behavior of matter under Pangler.
Extreme gravity. Early black hole candidates came from X-ray observations. When astronomers first opened the X-ray sky, it looked nothing like the calm, familiar night. Instead of steady starlight, there were fierce, flickering sources that seemed to switch on and off. Many of them sat inside our own galaxy, and some brightened so strongly that they demanded an explanation beyond ordinary stars. The key clue was variability. These sources could change dramatically on short timescales, which suggested the emitting region was small that pointed toward compact objects. In several cases, the X-rays appeared alongside evidence for an unseen massive companion. This was the beginning of a new kind of astronomy, where invisible objects were discovered by the violence of their surroundings. Long before we had images or gravitational waves, X-rays gave the first practical trail to follow. They hinted that something dark and massive was feeding nearby.
Hot gas near black holes emits strong X-rays.
Gas does not glow in X-rays because it is naturally hot. It glows that way because gravity can accelerate it to enormous speeds, then force it to collide and churn. As gas spirals inward, different layers rub and crash into each other. The energy of that motion turns into heat, and the temperatures can rise so high that the radiation shifts into the X-ray part of the spectrum. Near the inner regions, atoms can be stripped of their electrons, leaving a plasma that behaves in ways we do not see on Earth. The X-rays can also carry signatures of motion and gravity.
Spectral lines can be broadened by speed and shifted by gravitational effects. Even the flicker of X-ray brightness can reveal how the flow is changing from moment to moment. In a sense, X-rays are a readable language. They tell you that matter is falling deep into a gravitational well and getting punished into brilliance. X-ray binaries helped identify stellar black holes.
In these systems, a normal star shares an orbit with a compact, invisible partner. The star can lose gas to its companion, either through a stellar wind or through a stream of material pulled off by gravity. That transferred gas does not usually fall straight in. It forms a hot, rapidly rotating flow that can shine strongly in X-rays. Meanwhile, the visible star's motion can be tracked through shifts in its spectral lines, which reveals how fast it orbits and how heavy its unseen partner must be. When the inferred mass is too large for a neutron star, the simplest answer is a black hole. Some X-ray binaries also show characteristic changes in brightness and spectrum, as if the accretion flow switches between different states. Those state changes became a rich field of study on their own. This is how black holes became tangible. They were not seen directly at first. They were recognized as the missing weight in an orbit paired with a glowing stream of stolen gas.
Supermassive black holes are linked to galaxy formation.
Galaxies are not only collections of stars. They are ecosystems of gas, dust, and dark matter. And their centers often host something massive and compact. Evidence now suggests that the growth of a galaxy and the growth of its central black hole are connected. When a galaxy is young and rich in gas, its center can feed a black hole, which can become active and luminous. That activity can also affect the galaxy's future by heating gas or pushing it around. Over time, galaxies merge, and their central black holes can eventually merge too. This creates a long feedback loop between the core and the larger structure. The most striking part is scale. A central black hole is tiny compared with a galaxy, yet it can influence gas across tens of thousands of light years. That makes it hard to treat black holes as mere passengers. They appear to be participants in how galaxies settle, brighten, and mature.
Almost every large galaxy hosts a central black hole.
This has become one of the most important general statements in modern astronomy. In galaxy after galaxy, careful measurements point to a massive, compact object in the middle. Sometimes the evidence comes from fast-moving stars near the center. Sometimes it comes from gas disks orbiting too quickly to be explained otherwise. Sometimes it traces back to a galaxy's past active periods, when the core was bright enough to outshine its own stars. What is striking is how widespread this pattern appears to be. Our own Milky Way follows it, and so do many nearby galaxies. This suggests that black holes and galaxies have been evolving together for a very long time. It also means that when you observe a large galaxy, you are likely seeing a system with a concealed gravitational anchor at its center.
That anchor cannot be seen in ordinary light,
Yet it helps shape motion in the inner regions and influences the galaxy's long-term development. The mass of a galaxy correlates with the mass of its central black hole. This connection is one of the clearest indications that galaxies and their black holes are not separate stories. When astronomers compare black hole masses with the properties of their host galaxies, they uncover patterns too consistent to dismiss as chance. In particular, the mass of the black hole tends to align with the mass and stellar motions of the galaxy's central bulge. It is as though the inner structure of the galaxy and the growth of the black hole advance together across cosmic time. The correlation is not perfect,
and the scatter is scientifically interesting. But the overall trend is strong enough to guide models. Any theory of galaxy formation now has to explain why a central black hole ends up with roughly the right mass for the galaxy around it.
The physics behind the link likely involves gas inflows, star formation, and energy output from active phases. The correlation acts like a constraint. It tells you that whatever shaped galaxies also shaped the growth of their darkest central objects. This suggests galaxies and black holes evolved together. If black holes were only accidental leftovers, you would not expect them to match their hosts so well. Instead, the evidence points toward a shared story. When gas flows into a galaxy's center, it can feed both star formation and black hole growth. When the black hole becomes active, it can influence how much gas remains available for future stars. Galaxy mergers can deliver new gas and also bring in another central black hole, reshaping the core and changing the growth path. Of the long timescales, these processes can produce a kind of co-development. The galaxy supplies fuel and structure. The black hole supplies energy and gravitational influence.
In galaxy clusters, black hole activity can inflate cavities in hot gas that are visible in X-ray maps, showing that the central engine can reshape the larger pre-environment. This influence helps explain why some massive galaxies stop forming stars and become dominated by older stellar populations. It also helps explain why galaxy growth does not run away indefinitely. Without a regulating mechanism, models often produce galaxies that are too massive and too bright compared with what we observe. Black holes provide a plausible regulator. They are small, but when they feed, they can act like a thermostat for an entire galaxy. They can heat gas and suppress star formation. Star formation requires gas to cool and clump. If the gas stays hot and stirred, it resists collapse. Active black holes can keep gas from cooling in several ways. Intense radiation can ionize gas and raise its temperature. Fast outflows can shock gas and inject turbulence.
Jets can deliver energy to surrounding gas over large distances, preventing it from settling into dense clouds. The result can be a galaxy where plenty of gas exists in principle, yet it remains too warm or too disturbed to form many new stars. This helps explain why some galaxies transition from blue, star-forming systems to red, more quiescent systems dominated by older stars. It is a counterintuitive role for a black hole. You might expect a strong gravitational center to draw gas in and promote growth. Instead, the energetic consequences of accretion can do the opposite. The black hole's feeding can limit the galaxy's future star production, changing what the galaxy becomes over billions of years. This process is called feedback. In astronomy, feedback is a way of saying that a process can regulate itself through its consequences.
When a black hole accretes more gas, it becomes more energetic.
That energy affects the surrounding gas, which can reduce or reshape the future supply of accreting material. In a strong feedback cycle, a burst of black hole activity can heat or expel gas, which slows further accretion and dims the central engine. Later, gas can cool or flow back in, restarting the cycle. Feedback is not only about stopping growth, it can also guide it, setting the pace and the structure of a galaxy's evolution. The term is used widely because it helps connect small-scale physics near the black hole with large-scale outcomes in the host galaxy. It is one of the bridges between black hole astrophysics and galaxy formation theory. Without feedback, many models fail to match the universe we actually see. With feedback, the picture becomes more realistic and more dynamic, with the central engine acting as a regulating influence. The first image of a black hole was released in 2019. For years, black holes were famous for being unseeable. Then astronomers achieved something that sounded impossible. They created an image that revealed the immediate neighborhood of a supermassive black hole. The target was in a galaxy called Messier 87, and the technique required combining radio telescopes across the Earth into a single planet-sized, quote, observing system. This is very long baseline interferometry, and it demands exquisite timing, careful calibration, and an enormous amount of data processing. The result was not a photograph in the usual sense. It was a reconstructed view based on radio waves collected from many sites, then combined into a consistent image. Still, the impact was profound. The image gave the public and the scientific community a direct visual handle on an object defined by darkness. It also showed that black hole theory can make testable predictions about what the region near a horizon should look like. The release became a milestone, not only for black holes, but for modern observational astronomy.
The image showed a bright ring around a dark center.
That ring is not a physical hoop. It is light from hot plasma that has been bent, boosted, and lensed by extreme gravity. The dark center is the shadow, which is the region where light rays are captured, rather than reaching the telescope. The bright ring appears because some light paths skim close to the black hole and are redirected toward us. The plasma itself is orbiting at tremendous speeds, and its motion can make one side of the ring appear brighter due to relativistic effects. What made this especially compelling is that the ring shape was not arbitrary. It matched what simulations predicted for a black hole surrounded by glowing material. The image offered a new kind of evidence. It did not rely on tracking stars or measuring X-ray flicker. It showed a structure in the sky that is hard to explain without strong gravity-shaping light.
The ring and shadow together gave a visual signature that could be compared directly to theory.
Backring comes from light bending around the black hole. In general relativity, gravity is geometry. So light follows curved paths when spacetime is curved. Near a black hole, that curvature is so strong that light can loop partially around before escaping. Some photons can even orbit briefly on precarious paths, and small changes determine whether they escape or fall inward. This creates a concentration of brightness in a ring-like structure. The effect is a form of gravitational lensing, but pushed to an extreme. Instead of producing multiple images of a distant galaxy, it shapes the glow of matter right next to the black hole. This is why the ring is so informative. Its size and shape depend on the black hole's mass and spin, and on how the plasma is distributed. The ring is also a triumph of concept. It shows that black holes can be studied through the behavior of light itself, even though the black hole remains dark. In a way, gravity becomes an optical instrument, and the universe supplies the lens. The image confirmed predictions made decades earlier. Long before the first successful reconstruction, physicists and astronomers had worked out what a black hole should do to surrounding light. They predicted a shadow, a bright ring, and distinctive distortions caused by strong lensing. They also predicted how motion in the accreting plasma could make the image asymmetric. When the image arrived, it lined up with those expectations, within the limits of observation. That does not mean every detail was solved, because the plasma is turbulent and the view is complex. It does mean that a core prediction of strong gravity passed a dramatic visual test. This is important because black holes push general relativity into its most extreme regime. Many previous tests were in weaker gravitational fields, like the solar system or binary pulsars. A shadow image is a test closer to the edge, where spacetime curvature is intense and where alternative theories might diverge. Seeing a result that matches the standard predictions strengthens confidence that our understanding of gravity holds up even there. It also turns black holes into objects that can be measured by imaging, not only inferred indirectly. More black hole images have since been captured. After the first target, attention turned to our own galaxy's central black hole, Sagittarius A star. Imaging it is harder in some ways, because it is smaller on the sky and the surrounding plasma changes quickly. Still, astronomers produced an image that shows a similar ring-like structure, which added weight to the overall picture. As observing campaigns continue, images are becoming a tool for studying differences between black holes, not just proving they can be imaged at all. Future work aims to map changes over time to infer how plasma moves and how magnetic fields shape the flow. Imaging also encourages new theoretical predictions that can be checked directly. This is a shift in black hole science. The subject is no longer limited to orbits, flickers, and spectra. It now includes geometry you can literally point to, compare across objects, and refine with better data. Each new image is also a technical achievement because it requires global coordination, precise timing, and careful analysis. The result is a growing gallery of the universe's most extreme neighborhoods. Future telescopes will produce sharper black hole images. Sharpening an image means increasing resolution, and for these targets, that requires longer baselines and better sensitivity. Researchers are exploring additional observing sites, better receivers, and higher observing frequencies that can cut through some of the blurring effects of interstellar bar material. There are also proposals that involve placing radio telescopes in space, which would extend the baseline beyond Earth's diameter. With improved resolution, images could reveal more of the structure in the bright ring, and it may reveal finer details connected to spin and magnetic fields. Another aim is improved time resolution. If observations can be captured rapidly enough, images could show changes as the plasma shifts, forming a short sequence rather than a single still frame. That would be remarkable because it would allow us to watch matter moving within the strongest gravity we can observe. Sharper images would also strengthen tests of general relativity, since subtle differences might appear in the shape of the shadow or in patterns of brightness. In the years ahead, black hole imaging is expected to move beyond being a once-in-a-generation achievement
and become an evolving observational field with increasing precision and deeper physical insight.
Some black holes were already present very early in cosmic history. Astronomers have found quasars so distant that we see them as they were when the universe was very young. The light has traveled for billions of years, which means these objects were already massive when cosmic time was still in its early chapters. This is a shock at first glance. Building a supermassive black hole takes growth, and growth takes time and fuel. Yet the evidence suggests that some black holes reached enormous masses surprisingly early. This raises a direct question. What were the first seeds, and how did they form so soon after the first stars and galaxies were beginning to appear? The early universe was different. It had denser gas, more frequent mergers, and environments that could funnel material inward efficiently. Still, the existence of such early massive objects forces models to work hard. They are like milestones placed far back on the cosmic road. They tell us that black hole growth was underway almost as soon as galaxies began assembling. These early black holes grew surprisingly fast. To reach supermassive scales quickly, a black hole needs a head start or an unusually efficient feeding environment, or both. One possibility is that the first seas were larger than the remnants of ordinary stars. They might have formed from the direct collapse of massive gas clouds, producing a heavier starting point. Another possibility is that early accretion was sustained near the theoretical maximum for long periods without being choked off by the energy output. Dense, gas-rich early galaxies might have been able to deliver fuel steadily into the center, especially during frequent mergers. There are also scenarios where repeated mergers between smaller black holes contribute to rapid growth. Yet, the early universe seems to have produced objects that overcame those limits in at least some cases. This is why the high redshift quasar population is so valuable. It is not only a set of bright objects, it is a set of constraints. Any successful theory has to explain how massive seeds formed, how gas reached the center, and how growth continued in spite of energetic output. It also has to explain why such objects were rare enough that we do not see them everywhere. In other words, the early black holes are both a success and a problem. They show what nature can do, and they show where our simplest assumptions fail. New theories continue to be proposed and tested. Black hole science advances through a loop between ideas and evidence. When observations show something unexpected, like very massive early quasars or unusual merger masses, theorists propose new formation routes. Then observers look for signatures that could distinguish those routes, such as the asterisk environments of quasars, the distribution of spins, or the statistics of gravitational wave events.
Some theories focus on direct collapse seeds. Others focus on unusual accretion states that can exceed standard limits for short periods. Others explore the role of dense star clusters and repeated mergers. Future facilities will add pressure and clarity. More sensitive infrared telescopes can find earlier quasars and map their host galaxies. More gravitational wave detectors will find more mergers and fill out population statistics. Better radio imaging can test strong gravity with finer detail. The story is still unfolding, and that is one of its pleasures. Black holes are not a closed chapter of astronomy. They are a living field where new data can reshape the narrative quickly, and where the biggest questions are still on the table. Primordial black holes may have formed after the Big Bang.
In the early universe, everything was hotter, denser, and changing rapidly. If some regions were slightly denser than average, gravity could have overwhelmed expansion in those spots and collapsed them directly into black holes. That would make these objects older than any star and older than any galaxy. They would also be fossils of the universe's earliest structure, preserved in the form of compact mass. The intriguing part is what they could tell us. Their abundance would depend on how lumpy the early universe was on tiny scales we cannot easily measure with ordinary telescopes. If they exist, they could also create subtle effects today, like rare gravitational lensing events, or a background of high-energy radiation from the smallest graph ones. They sit at a crossroads between cosmology and black hole physics, and they turn the early universe into a laboratory that might still be leaving clues. These would not come from stars.
Stellar black holes are the end of a life story that includes nuclear fusion, layered elements, and often a supernova. A primordial black hole would have none of that ancestry. It would form from raw density, from gravity acting on the universe's earliest material, before stars ever lit up. That difference matters because it changes what mass ranges are possible and what environments they inhabit. A star-age black hole is tied to where stars form, which means galaxies, gas clouds, and chemical enrichment. A primordial black hole could exist almost anywhere, including places with little or no star formation. It would also change how we interpret certain observations. If a black hole is found in a region with no plausible stellar origin, or with a mass that is difficult to produce from ordinary stellar collapse, that can raise the quake question of a non-stellar pathway. This is why the idea remains so compelling.
It offers a completely different origin story, written into the universe before astronomy even begins. Primordial black holes could range widely in mass. The mass would depend on the scale of the region that collapsed and the moment in cosmic history when it happened. Earlier times correspond to smaller horizon scales, which can lead to smaller black holes. Later times allow larger regions to collapse, which can produce heavier ones. That creates a broad range of possibilities, from extremely small objects to ones that could rival the black holes formed by stars. Each mass range carries different implications. The smallest might have evaporated long ago if Hawking radiation applies, potentially leaving subtle traces in cosmic backgrounds. Intermediate ones could reveal themselves through gravitational lensing or by altering the motions of nearby stars. Larger ones might add to the population of black holes that later take part in mergers. This wide span is both the attraction and the challenge.
A broad mass range offers many possible signals, but it also means that no single, simple search can resolve the question. Instead, researchers approach the idea from multiple directions, excluding certain mass ranges while leaving others still viable. Some could be as small as mountains. It is a curious notion that something with the mass of a mountain could be compressed into an object far smaller than a grain of sand. In this realm, size and mass become entirely separate concepts. The mountain mass is familiar, but the compactness is not. Such an object would not be dangerous at a distance because gravity depends on mass and distance, not on how spooky the object is. If one passed near Earth, the most noticeable effect might be gravitational, like a brief lensing of a background star or a tiny disturbance to a spacecraft in trajectory if it came extremely close. The real mystery is survival.
Small black holes would be hotter in the Hawking picture, which means they would radiate more and might not last to the present day, unless their mass is above a certain threshold. That is why the mountain-sized idea sits right on the edge between imagination and testable physics. It is concrete enough to picture and extreme enough to force careful constraints. Others could rival stellar black holes. If primordial black holes exist in this heavier range, they become harder to distinguish from black holes made by collapsing stars. The clues would have to come from context. Are they found in places where massive stars never lived? Do their numbers match what stellar evolution predicts? Do their masses fall into ranges that stellar collapse struggles to produce? This is where gravitational wave astronomy becomes relevant, because it measures black hole masses directly through merger signals.
If a population shows up with unexpected patterns, it can motivate a closer look at non-stellar origins.
Another clue could come from how early such black holes might appear. A primordial origin would place them in the universe before the first stars, so they could in principle influence later structure formation by acting as dubious early seeds of gravitational attraction. The key is not to assume every heavy black hole must have a stellar parent. In this scenario, some could be ancient arrivals, already present before the first starlight, waiting in the dark for the universe to grow around them. Primordial black holes are a possible dark matter candidate. Dark matter is known through gravity, not through light, so compact dark objects are an obvious idea to test. A primordial black hole is dark by nature and massive by definition, which seems to fit the basic requirement.
If enough existed, they could contribute to the unseen mass that holds galaxies together and shapes cosmic structure. The challenge is that dark matter also behaves smoothly on large scales, while black holes are clumpy objects. Too many in the wrong mass range would produce effects we would notice, like too many lensing events, disrupted star clusters, or altered galaxy dynamics. So the idea lives in specific allowed windows where there could be enough mass in black holes without breaking other observations. This makes the hypothesis exciting and fragile at the same time. A single good detection of the right kind of lensing event would be suggestive, but it would not settle everything. Dark matter is a global problem, so any candidate must pass many independent tests. Primordial black holes remain in the conversation because they are simple, physical, and tied to early universe conditions we already know were extreme. No clear evidence for them has been found. This is not for lack of effort.
Scientists have searched for their signatures through micro-lensing surveys, through the stability of star clusters, through cosmic background radiation, and through the semi-statistics of black hole masses and mergers. Each method rules out some possibilities and leaves others still open. That is how the field makes progress. The absence of clear evidence means we do not get to claim a neat solution to dark matter or early universe mysteries yet. It also means the universe is placing constraints on how lumpy the early cosmos could have been on very small scales. In a way, every non-detection is still information about the Big Bang's aftermath. The situation also keeps researchers honest about what would count as proof. A single odd event is rarely enough. The strongest case would come from patterns that repeat, from multiple surveys, and from signals that agree across different wavelengths and techniques.
Until then, primordial black holes remain a carefully bounded possibility, not a confirmed population. Studying black holes helps test fundamental physics. Many areas of physics can be tested in laboratories, but black holes create conditions we cannot reproduce. They combine strong gravity, rapid motion, and extreme densities in one place. That makes them excellent stress tests for our theories. When scientists compare real observations to precise predictions, they can look for tiny mismatches that might signal new physics. Imaging the region near an event horizon tests how light moves through curved spacetime. Gravitational wave signals test how gravity behaves in violent, rapidly changing fields. High-energy radiation from accreting systems tests plasma behavior under intense gravitational and magnetic forces. These are not separate topics. They are different windows onto the same extreme environment.
Black holes also force theorists to confront deeper issues, like the connection between entropy and geometry, and the fate of information in a quantum BT universe. Even when answers are uncertain, the questions are sharpened by contact with real data. That combination of theory pressure and observational access is rare. And it is why black holes keep showing up at the center of fundamental debates. They connect gravity, space, time, and quantum theory. Black holes are where the big ideas collide. Gravity dominates the motion of matter and light near them, which makes space-time geometry the main actor. Time behaves differently in strong gravity, which makes black holes a natural place to test relativity's view of clocks and causality. Quantum theory enters through predictions like Hawking radiation and through the thermodynamic behavior of horizons. Entropy, temperature, and information become part of the story. Even though those concepts feel far from astrophysics at first, the connection is not cosmetic. It shows up as real mathematical relationships, such as the way horizon area relates to entropy and the way quantum fields behave near a horizon. This is why black holes are often described as bridges between disciplines. They force the universe's largest structures to speak the same language as its smallest rules. If a complete theory of quantum gravity exists, black holes are one of the places where its fingerprints should appear most clearly. They are not just objects in space. They are meeting points for the foundations of physics. Black holes act as natural laboratories for extreme conditions. A laboratory is a place where you vary conditions and measure outcomes. With black holes, nature does the varying for you across the universe. Some systems are quiet and low density, which lets you study subtle gravitational effects without a blinding glare. Others are actively accreting, which lets you study hot plasma, magnetic turbulence, and rapid variability. Some are small, some are supermassive. And that alters how tidal forces behave and how quickly processes unfold. Some reside in dense stellar clusters, others at galactic centers, and that changes how companions and gas are delivered. Each system becomes a distinct experiment carried out under different boundary conditions. Astronomers compare them, searching for patterns that uncover the underlying rules. This approach is especially valuable when testing physics that cannot be reproduced on Earth. No device can create a stable event horizon. No laboratory experiment
can compress mass to such extremes. Yet the universe supplies these examples and offers multiple ways to study them, from radio waves to X-rays to ripples in space-time. That is what makes the field so fruitful. Time moves more slowly near a black hole than it does farther away. This effect follows directly from how gravity shapes space-time. A clock closer to a massive object ticks differently from one at a greater distance. Near a black hole, the contrast can become striking. If you could hover close to the horizon of a large black hole, your clock would tick more slowly compared with that of a distant observer. This previous signals you send outward would be stretched to lower frequencies, and the outside world's processes would appear sped up from your perspective, depending on how you observe them. This is not science fiction. It is a real prediction of general relativity. The reason black holes matter here is scale around Earth. The effect exists but is small, which is why it is corrected for in satellite navigation. Near a black hole, the same rule becomes an extreme case, large enough to shape what we observe, from accreting matter and from stars on tight orbits. Time itself becomes part of the observable environment. This effect is predicted by general relativity. Einstein's theory replaced the idea of gravity as a force with gravity as curvature. Once you accept that, time is no longer universal. The rate at which time passes depends on where you are in a gravitational field and how you are moving. This has been tested many times in weaker fields, including precise clock comparisons and satellite systems. Biholes extend the same framework into its strongest domain, where curvature becomes intense and where time dilation is no longer a tiny correction. The prediction is not an optional add-on. It is built into the geometry of the theory.
To the sleep porch.
In black hole systems,
Tonight,
time
we'll be
dilation
exploring
helps
the
explain
festival of
why
Chinese
signals
New
from
Year,
deep in the gravitational
along with
well
its traditions,
are shifted
rituals,
and delayed,
and beliefs.
and why the inner regions of
We'll
accretion
step
tag.
into the world of lunar New
Flows
Year
show distinctive
celebrations,
relativistic
and specifically
signatures.
The Lantern Festival.
It also
that
shapes how we
closes
interpret
this
the
holiday
timing of
period.
events near the horizon.
If this
Because
content
what looks
interests
fast
you,
locally
please take a
can look
moment to
slowed
like
down
the
to
video
faraway
and subscribe
observers.
to the channel.
Understanding this
Your
effect
support
is
motivates
essential
us
to reading
to
black
continue
hole
creating
data
more
correctly.
meaningful videos.
It is not a poetic idea.
While this time of
It is
festivity
a practical
is
tool
enjoyed
for
throughout
turning
mainland
observations
China,
into
it's also
physical
celebrated
parameters.
in many other countries
The stronger the
worldwide.
gravity, the slower
It's thought
time
that
moves.
more than 1.5
This is the simple
billion
rule
people
that makes gravity
celebrate
feel like
every year.
more than weight.
I have the
In
pleasure
everyday
of
life,
reading
gravity
this one
is
for
something you feel
and it
in
was
your
written
muscles.
by Joe Steer.
In relativity, gravity
And
is
to
also
all our
something that
listeners
reshapes
that
the flow of time.
I wish you a very
Stronger
happy
gravity
Lunar
means
New Year.
deeper curvature, and deeper
Now, my
curvature
friends,
means a
let's
greater
give
difference
ourselves a
between
moment
local
to
time
unwind
and distant
relax.
time. The rule has
Begin
a
by
real,
closing
measurable
your eyes.
consequence. If you
Find a
place two
position
identical
that feels
clocks
comfortable
at
to
different
you.
gravitational potentials,
And bring your
they will
attention
disagree
into
even
your
if they
body.
started
Settle
synchronized.
with a couple of
On
deep,
Earth, the differences are
relaxing
tiny.
breaths.
Near a neutron star,
Breathing in
they
fully,
would be substantial.
holding for a moment,
Near a black hole,
and
they
then
can become
gently releasing
extreme.
the air back out.
This is why the region near a black
Now
hole
see if you
is
can
so
start to
informative.
imagine
It
a
pushes a
point of
clean
light
principle
at your
into
very
a range where its effects can
bright
dominate
and
how
soothing.
light and motion appear.
Sense it warming your body.
It also
from
gives you
within
an intuitive
and
way to
expelling
picture
any
what
negative
accreting
or
matter
unwanted
experiences
energies
your body may be holding. As gas falls
Picture
deeper,
that light
it is not only
expanding
moving
outwards,
faster,
filling your
it is living in a
chest,
region where
legs,
time itself
arms,
is running differently.
neck, and head.
That change affects everything
Watch
from
as the
orbital
expanding
dynamics
light
to the
fills
observed
you with
rhythm
its
of
soothing
flickers and
glow.
flares.
Imagine
Black
that
holes
every single
represent the
person on
strongest
Earth
gravity
has a
known.
tiny inner light.
Strong
just like
gravity
this.
does not just mean heavy mass.
Watch as every
It
person's
means being
light
able to get
expands
very close to
outwards
that mass
until
while
the
it
world
remains
is
compact.
a vibrant and interconnected
A planet
pattern
can
of
be massive,
billions of
but you cannot
soothing
approach its
lights.
center without hitting solid ground.
And now, follow
A
my
star
voice
can be more
as we
massive,
travel to
but it has a
little
large
town at
radius
nighttime
that keeps you
with a
relatively
silver
far
moon
from its mass
glowing overhead.
concentration.
A black hole places a great deal of mass into a very small region, which allows space-time curvature to become extreme in a region that is still accessible to observation, at least from the outside.
That is why black holes
the buildings
are the best
alleyways
places we know
and people around
to study strong field relativity as shadows.
They are also why
Homes and shops
gravitational
throughout
wave
the area
detections were
have switched off the electric
lights at sundown,
because mergers probe
this
changing
only
strong
deepens the
fields
magic of the festival
in a way that no
as your
steady
eyes are
orbit
drawn to
can.
the bright lanterns hanging
In black
between
hole
streets
environments
and across
light
doorways
paths bend sharply.
This
Time
is the
dilation
lantern
becomes
festival,
intense, marking the
and
close
orbital
of the
stability
lunar New Year
changes in
celebrations
distinctive
in a village in
ways.
China. Lanterns
If you want to
are
see
decorative
what
gravity
objects
can do
seen throughout
at
the
its
new
most
year
dramatic
for the atmosphere,
black holes
tradition,
are the clearest
antiquity,
examples nature
and a
gives
gentle,
us.
glowing light.
Nothing special is felt at the
But the
event
lanterns
horizon
used
of
during the
large
festival
black holes
are no ordinary ones.
This is one of the most
They are often larger,
counterintuitive truths
more
in the
elaborate,
subject.
and themed around the zodiac
The
animal,
horizon is a
celebrating
crucial
this
boundary
special
for
season.
escape and communication.
Lunar New Year
Yet
signals
it
the
is
end
not
of
a
winter
physical
and
surface.
the arrival of spring,
For a
according to the
sufficiently
traditional
large black
Chinese
hole,
calendar.
Unlike
tidal
the
forces
Gregorian
at the
calendar,
horizon can
which
be
divides
modest.
the year into 12 months,
That means
the
an
traditional
astronaut
Chinese
falling
calendar
freely
follows
could cross the
24
horizon
lunar
without being
terms.
torn apart at that
The
moment.
first term begins
and
with the
without
new
feeling
moon
a sudden
appearing
shock
between the
that
21st
announces
of
the
January
crossing.
and the 20th
The
of
laws
February.
of physics still look
As
normal
such,
in a
the
small
dates
region
of the festival differ
because
from year to
relativity
year,
says
depending
free
on that
fall
year's
is like
lunar
weightlessness.
calendar.
The drama
Celebrations
is
may
not
last
in the
for 15
sensation.
days in total,
The drama
though
is in
often
the
only
global
the first 7
consequence.
days are a public
Once
holiday.
past that boundary, signals can no
There's a
longer
great deal
reach
of
the
preparation
outside world.
that takes place before the
This is a
festival
powerful
officially
reminder
begins.
that black holes
Prior
are not
to the
defined
holiday
by
itself,
what they feel
it's
like
common
up
in southern
close,
China to eat
but
a
by what
New
they
Year
do
cake,
to causal
also known
structure.
as rice cake.
The horizon is
This
a
is a
geometric
combination
feature,
of glutinous rice
not a
flour
wall you
with
bump
sugars, fruits, and
An
spices.
observer
It
falling
is often
in
steamed
would
rather
notice
than baked.
no sudden boundary.
Historically, it was provided as an offering
For
to the
someone
kitchen
in
god,
freefall,
the most
the
important
surroundings
of all
change
domestic
continuously.
deities. One of the kitchen god's
Starlight
duties,
ahead becomes
according to
distorted and
Taoist folk
focused,
beliefs,
and the sky
is
can
to
appear
report to
warped
the
by
Jade
lensing.
Emperor before the new
The
year
unfailing
begins,
observer
detailing
might
the
see
deeds of the
outside
family
universe
during the past
concentrated
year
into a
to
smaller
see if they
region
would
of the
have
sky,
good fortune.
depending on the path.
It was
and the
believed
black
that
hole's
after
spin.
eating the sticky cake,
Yet
the
there
kitchen
is no
god's
bright
mouth would
line
be so
painted in
stuck
space
that he
that
wouldn't be
says
able to tell of
horizon
any
here.
transgressions.
The
reason is that the horizon is
some
defined
regions,
by escape
families
paths
might
to
also
infinity,
pour wine over the
which is a
portrait of
global
the
kitchen
concept.
god, so that he
A
will
person
be happy
crossing it
and
is
report
making a
only
local
nice
measurement.
things.
And local
The
physics
eating of this
cannot
cake
directly
is
label
thought to
that
bring
global
about
boundary.
much good luck, and
This is
leftover
one of the
pieces
reasons
are
the
often
horizon
sent
is
out
so
as
philosophically
gifts to friends and
scientifically
family.
rich.
Its name
It divides
is actually
what
a
can influence
homonym
what,
for higher
yet
year,
it does so without a
indicating
physical marker
a good year
you can
ahead.
touch.
In the week
The
prior to New
experience
Year,
becomes a lesson
families
in
are kept very
relativity's
busy
viewpoint.
with housework and chores.
What you can say about
Homes are
crossing
cleaned
depends
until
on
they're
who is
full,
measuring
who, and span.
what they can observe,
an act
and
which
how
is
their
as
information
symbolic
is
as it
limited.
is practical.
It's the
That
washing,
mismatch between
dusting,
local experience
and tidying
and
away
global
of the
consequence
old year that has passed
is central to
and the
many
bringing
black
in
hole
of
puzzles.
the new one.
Outside,
Every effort
observers
is made
never see
to ensure
objects
that the
fully
homes
cross
are
the
welcoming
horizon.
environment for the good
From
luck
far away,
and prosperity.
the light from
of
an
the year
infilling
ahead.
object takes longer and longer
Once
to
the
reach
house
you.
is clean,
As it
it's
comes
decorated
closer
in
to
the
the
lucky
horizon,
colors of red and
each
gold,
successive signal
with
is
green
delayed
added
more than
to
the
symbolize
last.
the coming
At the same
springtime
time,
growth.
The light is shifted to
Lanterns
lower
are hung
and
from
lower
ceilings,
frequencies,
and decorative
and
paper
it
cuttings
becomes
and
fainter.
pictures are stuck to walls.
The result is
Long strips
that
of
the
red
object
paper
appears
bearing
to slow
poetic
down
messages of hope
and fade,
fortune,
as
and
if it is
beautiful
freezing
calligraphy
at the edge.
are hung beside
In
and above
practice,
the main doorway
it quickly
to the
becomes
home.
too dim to detect.
Colorful ornaments
This
are
does
brought
not
out into
mean
view,
the object
as are
never
vases filled
crosses.
with blooming orchids.
It means
peach blossoms,
the information
or
about the
fruiting tangerine
crossing
trees
is not delivered
in a celebration
to distant
of approaching
observers
springtime.
in a finite, easily
Some
observed
families
way.
go a step further, painting their doors and window
This
frames
difference
in rich,
between
vibrant
what the
red.
falling object experiences
And it's not only the home
and
that
what the
receives a
distant
makeover,
observer can receive,
but also the people
is
themselves.
a key feature of horizon physics.
Haircuts are booked in,
It
and
shapes
new
how we
clothing
talk
is
about
purchased
black hole
so that
growth
one might fully
and
embrace
about what
that
can be
feeling of a
confirmed
fresh start.
observationally
from head to toes.
It also explains
Outstanding
why
debts are paid off
compatible
with
with
the
the universe
sent
where
out
causality
and
matters.
loose ends tied up wherever possible.
The horizon
Height
At last,
event,
not
the celebrations
by a curtain,
begin, but by
on
the
Chinese
structure
New
of
Year's
space-time,
Eve,
with a
timing
feast
itself.
known as the reunion dinner.
Black holes
This is perhaps
challenge
the most
intuition,
special meal
but follow
in a family's
precise
year.
physical laws.
A time when families come
They
together,
sound like
with
violations
even those
of
living
common
far
sense.
away, traveling
Yet
home.
they are
to
among the
partake in the
most
celebrations.
rule-bound objects in
Everything
astrophysics.
is a
Orbital
shared
motion near
experience.
them can be
From
predicted.
preparing the food,
Light
setting
setting
the table,
can be calculated.
to eating the food itself.
Merch-based
Reforms
the new
can
year
be
is
modeled with
welcomed in.
remarkable accuracy.
The actual
The
meal
weirdness
differs
comes from
the
region
laws,
to region,
not from
though in
breaking
general,
them. What's served is a
That is
banquet
why
of meats,
black holes
fish,
are such
vegetables,
powerful
and
teaching
dumplings.
objects.
In
They
some
force you
regions,
to update
golden
intuition to
dumplings are
match
made,
reality,
to have the appearance
rather
of
than the
edible
other
treasure,
way around.
like the gold ingots
They also
formerly
reward
used in
careful
imperial
thinking,
China. Long
because
noodles
small
are
conceptual
often served
mistakes
in the hopes
lead to big
that those
misunderstandings,
eating will have
like
long
the idea
and
that
happy
black
lives.
holes constantly suck everything out
Fish,
nearby.
which is a homonym for
In
plenty,
reality, you can
is often
compute
served
stable
as well.
orbits, energy
Many
extraction
people will eat
possibilities,
peanuts
and
or
signal
seeds
delays
as
from
a symbolic
first
cope
principles.
for children.
When observations
Oranges
match those
and
predictions,
tangerines
it is
are a
not
symbol
just
of
satisfying
family togetherness.
It is a deep confirmation
candy
that
may
the
be
universe
eaten
is
with hope for a
consistent
sweet year
even in
ahead.
its most extreme corners.
Each dish is as
The
symbolic
challenge is
as it
psychological,
delicious.
not mathematical.
On Chinese New
Your
Year's
everyday
Eve,
experience
families
did not
generally
evolve to
stay
handle
home
curved
playing
spacetime.
mahjong.
Black
or
holes
other games
make you learn
until
a new
midnight.
kind of common sense.
They are simpler
Others
than
have
stars,
parties,
yet far
or
more
reminisce
extreme.
about years
A
past.
star is complicated.
It is
It has
believed
layers,
that
chemistry,
children who stay up
convection,
late on
magnetic
New Year's
cycles,
Eve
winds,
will increase
and
the
changing
lifespan
fusion
of their
processes.
parents. In
Once
some
a black
regions,
hole has settled,
the dumplings
can be
cooked
described
earlier
by a small set of
won't
properties,
be eaten
which
until
makes
it's
it
nearly
appear deceptively
midnight.
simple. Yet that
When the clock
simplicity
eventually
conceals
strikes
extremity.
12, the skies are
compactness
lit with
generates
stunning
immense curvature.
fireworks of
The
every
horizon
pattern,
forms a one-way
shape,
boundary
and
for
color.
information. The inner orbits
Chinese
allow matter
New
to
Year's
reach
Day
extraordinary
brings
speeds
more
and
opportunities
temperatures
to spend
before
time
vanishing.
with family and loved ones.
The result
Most
is an
people
object
will
that is
spend the day with their
mathematically spare,
extended
but
families,
physically
particularly
intense.
more elderly relatives
This is why
like
black holes
grandparents.
are so valuable in
Mandarin
theoretical
oranges
research.
are exchanged.
Fewer
Symbols of
defining
good
features
fortune
mean
and
fewer
family
complications,
togetherness.
leading
While
to
married
clearer
family
tests
members
of
are
ideas
known
about
to give out
gravity,
red envelopes
thermodynamics,
containing
and quantum
cash.
behavior.
These beautiful
observation,
envelopes are
the contrast
decorated
is
with
equally
auspicious
striking.
messages, written
A
in
star
gold
emits
lettering,
light because
bestowing
of
yet
processes
more happy
within it.
wishes upon their
A
lucky
black
recipients.
hole's most dramatic light
Generally, these
arises
envelopes are
from the
gifted
space
from the
around
older
it,
members
as
of the
matter
family
is
to the younger,
accelerated and heated
alongside
by
the
gravity.
hope that it will lessen any obstacles
That makes
that
the
potentially
surroundings
lie ahead.
spectacular.
Businesses
Even though
too
the central
will distribute
object
red
itself
envelopes amongst
remains
their
dark.
employees, all in the hopes of a
simplest
smooth
description
year
in
ahead.
astrophysics
Money
rise
is
to
generally
some of the
given
most
in multiples of
extreme
8
phenomena
or
we
in
know.
numbers ending with 8. Black holes
Being that
remain
8
among
is
the most
considered the
important
luckiest
objects
of
in
numbers.
modern science. Money is always given in influence even
astronomy,
numbers, but they because also odd
influence
numbers are
physics
thought at
to
a
be
foundational
unlucky.
level.
However, the number
In
4
astrophysics,
is always
they
avoided
help explain
because the
quasars,
word for 4
jets,
is similar to the
galaxy
word
evolution,
for death in
and the
many
most
Chinese
energetic
dialects.
events we can detect.
For this reason, hotels
In
and
relativity,
businesses will
they
also
provide
often
strong
omit the
field
4th
tests
floor.
that push the
And
theory
restaurant
far
tables
beyond the solar
will jump
system.
from 3 to 5.
In quantum theory, they
Beliefs
raise questions
around luck
about
are a
entropy,
central part of Chinese
temperature,
culture,
and information
particularly
that
during
do
the
not
New
appear
Year
so
period.
sharply anywhere else. Indeed,
Similarly
in
to how much is
cosmology,
done to
they
usher
connect
in
to
good
the early
fortune,
universe through
many
ideas
activities
like
are also
primordial
avoided
formation
because they're thought
and
to
the
be
growth of
unlucky.
structure.
On Chinese New
Few
Year's
subjects
Day,
touch
washing
so
one's
many
hair or
areas at
clothing
once.
is thought
They
to
also
wash away
drive
good
new
luck. Technology, while sweeping or needlework
Global
are
telescope
thought to
arrays
deplete a
were
person's
built
wealth.
to image horizons.
Certain words are taboo.
Kilometer-scale
like the number 4,
interferometers were
and
built to
porridge
detect
should not be
space-time
eaten,
waves.
as it's said to bring
Data
about
analysis
poverty.
methods
There are other
were developed to
superstitions
pull
that
faint
last
patterns
throughout
out
the
of noise.
15-day period.
Black
Like
holes
not
do not
using
just
scissors
sit in the
or
universe,
knives, because
they
they
shape
cut away
how we
wealth,
study the universe.
or wearing
And they
black
keep forcing
or white,
new tools,
which are
new
associated with
observations,
sadness and poverty
new
and
theories.
funerals, respectively.
That is why they keep their central place,
Even the fireworks
after
that
decades
paint
of
the
progress.
sky night after night are thought
As
to
we
scare
come to
away
the end of
evil
our journey
spirits,
through black holes,
as are the
you have
firecrackers
moved through a
and
universe
bamboo
where
lit
gravity
below,
can shape
and the spectacular
everything.
parades of lion
You
troops
have visited the
fill
edge
the streets.
where escape ends.
Out
The
of all
regions
that happens
where hot
throughout the
matter
New Year
spirals
period,
and
these
blazes,
parades are amongst
and
the
the
most
quiet
unique
places
and
where
fabulous.
invisible mass
is known only by the
Watching the
motion
lie-like
it
movements of these
commands.
magical creatures is
You have
like watching
heard
a
how
festive
black
work
holes
of
can
art
collide
and
Indeed,
send ripples
the Chinese
through
lion
spacetime.
costumes
How
showcase
they can
every
power
shade
jets
of red
that cut
gold,
across
and
galaxies,
green, and how
all
their
upon the
influence
richest
can
and
reach
most
far beyond
sumptuous
the
silks and
darkness at their
furs.
center.
Along the
Their
way,
massive
the
heads are
story
particularly
widened.
impressive.
It touched
A
on
molded
the early
papium
universe
constructed
and
over
the
a bamboo
possibility
frame,
of ancient
meticulously
black holes,
painted and
born
decorated.
from the first
They are as
density
strange
waves.
and magical as one
It brushed
could
against
ever imagine,
wormholes and
concealing
white
the
holes
expert
as
performers
ideas
inside
that test what
to the point where
space-time
one
might
might
allow.
easily forget that they
It
aren't
returned
somehow
to the
magical
sky we
creatures
can
brought to
observe,
life.
to rings
They
of
even
light
move
around
like
shadows,
lions, leaping about
and
in
to the
such an
careful
acrobatic
measurements
manner
that let us
dancing
learn from
to the beat of
things we
drums,
cannot see
gongs,
directly.
and cymbals. Occasionally, they
Now
pause to
let the
munch
scale
upon the
of it
fresh
all
greens
drift
hung from
outward.
various doorways en route.
Picture distant
Their
galaxies
mouths chomp
as
at the
soft
vegetables,
light
leaving a
scattered
trail
across
of leaves
deep
on the
black
ground
ocean.
meant to symbolize the spreading of good
Picture
luck
gravity
and fortune
as
around
a
the town.
slow, steady sculptor,
As before,
shaping
there are
orbits,
differences in costume
shaping
and practice
time,
from region to region.
shaping the paths of light itself.
But generally, these dances will take place
universe
over the first
keeps
few days
moving.
of the new year.
But you do not
Like
need
many of
to.
the other practices at this time,
If
there are
you
numerous
enjoyed this
myths
sleepy
associated
science
with the use of
journey,
lions.
You might like to tap
One
like
particularly
or
charming
subscribe,
story tells of
or
the
leave a
evil
comment
beast
with the
Neon,
part that
who
surprised you
threatened the
most.
safety of a village
It helps
until
the
the
people
channel
enlisted
enlisted
more
lions
curious
to scare him
minds.
away.
The
And it
following
supports
year,
these long
without
night
any
voyages.
real lions
And if you
to
help
instill
them,
awake,
the
there will
villagers
be
dressed
another
up
video waiting
and
on
pretended
screen, to be lions,
ready to carry you
successfully
onward into a
scaring
new
away the
corner of
beast,
science.
and doing so
For now,
every year
let
after.
your breathing settle into a
These
calm
dances
rhythm.
are a modern
Let your
reenactment
jaw
of this tale,
unclench
and the victory
and let your
of
shoulders
good
drop.
over evil.
The night is still here
The day
with you,
after New Year's
and
Day
the universe
is often
can keep
referred
its
to
mysteries
as the
for
year's
tomorrow.
beginning, and marks the
Sleep
start
well,
of a new cycle
and good night.
with its own
Hello there,
associated
and
zodiac
welcome
animal.
to the sleep